Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of Sean Talks Star Wars here on YouTube. And this week, this is our Star Wars podcast, of course, and I'm joined by my good friend Josh Sharpe from DCU News on Instagram. What's going on, Josh? How you doing?
Dude, I'm doing well, man. Thanks for having me. I'm really happy that you're finally able to get this podcast off the ground. I know it's something you've been trying to do for like a really long time, so it's kind of cool to see it all happening now.
Yeah, I'm excited, and I'm glad that there's no technical issues yet,
Yeah,
anyway, this episode, because we definitely had some bad ones on the first episode, but I think I got all those fixed. And YouTube copyright should not happen this time either. So we're just going to kind of chill, relax, and talk about some good old Star Wars. For this week, we want to kind of touch on things that Josh really likes in Star Wars. And Josh kind of has like a little niche favorite thing in Star Wars because a lot of people like Revenge of the Sith, if you've read the thumbnail or the title, which I'm sure you have. But I don't know anyone that likes it as much as Josh does. And where does it rank for you? It's like your top three, isn't it?
yeah, no, it's definitely in my top three. It's actually my second favorite Star Wars film. Of course, Empire Strikes Back kind of being the number one, which I think is the number one for a lot of people, and
It's
I feel
not
like
mine,
rightfully.
but
Yeah, oh yeah, okay, yeah, okay.
I'm an odd
Aside
one
from you,
out. I
yeah,
think it's the
like
best one. I don't know if I think it's the best one, but it's a very good one.
Yeah, no,
I'll give you that.
that was I think that was the first. I didn't even see A New Hope like that. Like Empire was the first Star Wars film that I ever saw, and then I saw A New Hope, and then I saw Return of the Jedi. But yeah, no, I feel like Episode Three. Like I just feel like the themes that they tackle in that movie, just the way you see Anakin's like downfall, that fight between him and Obi-Wan during the third act is just phenomenal, which is why like it's like my second favorite Star Wars film. It's actually, and this is something that I noticed earlier today, is that Episode Three was actually the first film I ever saw in theaters that I saw more than once,
Interesting.
which I think
I
is kind of
wasn't old
interesting.
enough to see Revenge of the Sith in theaters when it came out. So
Oh,
how does
really?
that make you feel?
Oh my
I
god.
was 4.
Oh man. Yeah, no, I keep see now that's wild to think about because I remember going to the theater. I remember seeing like the trailers and like getting like super hyped about it because I mean, I was young at the time, but I still like enjoyed episode 2 and I was just like, "Yo, I'm so excited to kind of see where this connects with the original trilogy." And then I saw the trailers for episode 3, and then I remember sitting in the theater and watching it and like having like such a great time and kind of like feeling like the crowd energy and stuff like that. Actually, it was kind of like one of my like fondest memories of kind of being a kid is going to see like Star Wars and stuff. But yeah, no, I love this movie so much. I really really do.
Yeah, so we're definitely gonna dive into like all aspects of Revenge of the Sith. But before we do, I'm gonna just touch up on some recent Star Wars news. It's hard to do this like twice a week because not that much Star Wars news comes out. But thanks to our friends at Star Wars Newsnet, we do have some rumors about the character of Zori Bliss in Episode 9. This is Carrie Russell's character. Um, I don't know. It says potential spoilers. Josh, I'm not going to spoil anything here, but I'm going to read you this really quick and kind of get your quick thoughts because I know I didn't send this to you beforehand and I haven't
Oh,
read this until 2 minutes ago. So this should be really random and fun.
nice.
So according to Star Wars Newsnet, which is getting its information from I think Bespin Bulletin, which is another Star Wars podcast or show or website. They're saying that her character is 100% a good guy, or at least just does not like the First Order, and that she's going to help the Resistance escape Kajimi, which is that dark, musty, like blue planet that we see in the teaser trailer. Um, Beyond that, there's something else of interest. Apparently, the design of a certain ship that appears in the film, which Ray comments looks oddly familiar, might belong to Zori Bliss herself. There, we're not able to confirm it. It just seems like that ship might belong to her. And according to them, Ray comments that it looks oddly familiar. We did see Kajimi, and I think that is all that information there. Um, I hope this isn't her mother. I really don't want that. I know you don't like The Last Jedi. We're not really here to get into The Last Jedi. This
Yeah.
is another conversation. As I spoke with Alex last Friday, This is a podcast where we're trying to spread positivity in Star Wars. For the most part, of course, we can dislike things, but I don't want to get into a debate about The Last Jedi. But
Neither do I.
I don't like, without getting into The Last Jedi, do you like the idea that Rey is a nobody? Yes or no?
Yes and no. I think
That's not how you answer the question.
Well, no. Let me explain. Because like I do like the idea of someone kind of like coming from essentially nothing and rising to greatness instead of having greatness already kind of like be in their lineage or being a part of their family. So like I kind of wrestle. That's actually like one of the main reasons. Of course, I can get into it. One of the main reasons why I don't like or I'm not fond of The Last Jedi. But I mean, I'm not gonna like cry over it.
Okay.
If she, since she's quote unquote a nobody. But yeah, it's just one of those things, I guess.
Okay. That's fair. I like that she's a nobody. So I hope, I mean, even if her mother is Zori Bliss, she's still a nobody. I just don't think that needs to be like information that we need in episode 9. I don't know. I guess if she comes from bounty hunters or whatever, that'd be cool, or smugglers. I'm fine with that story. I just don't know if we need to be introduced to those characters. And even if, I don't know, I feel like JJ's not going to go really deep into this in 9, but we'll find out come December. The other news that was announced today that I know you definitely don't, well, maybe you care about this, Josh. I don't know. There is a Star Wars Galaxy's Edge Black Spire cookbook, which is coming out.
Oh,
so
I actually did hear about
that. So I don't know. I know you like to cook. I don't know if you want to cook foods from a galaxy far, far away, but that is coming out and it's available for pre-order right now. That's exciting, I guess. I'm going to Black Spire in Florida in November. I'm very excited. There'll be a whole podcast episode on that then. But no, I think that's exciting. I mean, I'm not a big into Star Wars cookbooks. They exist. I've read them for the most part. There's some cool stuff in there. It's more niche than anything, but I like the idea that like you can actually make the food that like is served at Galaxy's Edge. That's a little bit different than the other types of cookbooks that they've had in the past, or just like Wookiee cookies or stuff like that.
I was actually just about to ask him, like, okay, so is the cookbook supposed to be recipes that they actually make at Galaxy's Edge, or are they taking actual food from the Star Wars universe and saying, oh, hey, here's how do you make blue milk or some like weird stuff like that?
Yeah, no, it looks like it's just the recipes from Galaxy's Edge, which is cool. It's like $35 and it comes out November 5th.
Porg legs.
Well, no, there's a lot of cool like stuff that they have, like not to dive into Galaxy's Edge, but like I know that like for one of the restaurants in the dead center is like a pod racing engine that they say is their meat cooker. Like they don't actually use it for that, but like in lore, they cook the meat off of like a pod racing engine, which I think is really cool. But no, I mean, I know there's a ton of Star Wars chefs and stuff. People are going to want to try to make these recipes. I'm actually not really looking forward to trying the blue milk because I heard it was like really organic and like not shit that I usually eat. But you know, like if I could make my own blue milk at home with just milk and food dye, that'd be better. But no, I mean, it'll be exciting for some people. I probably won't pick it up, but I just figured I'd share. There were also some Lego leaks that I was supposed to talk about with my buddy Frank. Frank couldn't make it this week. We'll get into those probably next week. But Josh isn't a big Lego knowledgeable person, so we're gonna save those.
I know nothing. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. There's not a ton of stuff about that, but Frank and I'll dive into that next week. I'm looking forward to that conversation. Other than that, let us jump into our main topic this week, which is of course Revenge of the Sith. Episode 3. Was it? I don't know if you'll know this. Was it released on May the 4th in 2005? I know it was May.
It might have been on Star Wars Day.
I don't know.
See, like now I want to go check. Hold on.
I'm gonna check. But no, released in 2005. Hayden Christensen, Ewan McGregor, Natalie Portman, Samuel L. Jackson, all that good stuff.
It was May 19th.
Oh, was it May 19th? Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, there we go. But no, I like this movie a lot, and like we're not gonna just kind of like go a brief review. We're gonna really dive into it. Um, I there's just a lot to love here. It's generally agreed that it's the best of the prequels. I don't think anyone's gonna really dispute that. Um, I like the prequels more than most, so across the board, I like all these movies. But Revenge of the Sith is probably my favorite. Um, there's just a lot to love here. So we're gonna kind of just go like I don't know, scene by scene, I guess. Kind of talk about the entire scope of things and where things come into play. Obviously, at the time when Revenge of the Sith was made, we didn't have the Clone Wars. We had the animated, like, original one from, like, 2003. But we didn't have the canonical 2008 3D animated series yet. So a lot of what happens in the Clone Wars plays into episode 3, but not as heavily because they weren't directly connected at the time. But I'll probably dive into that a little bit more as we kind of move along talking about Anakin. But let's go straight into like the opening of the movie. It's probably my favorite opening in a Star Wars movie. I'll leave it at that. Josh, you want to kick off with the opening because it's just so good, and I'm sure you have plenty to say about it.
Yeah, no, the opening was definitely probably like one of the more, I guess, quote unquote, more action-packed openings of a Star Wars film. You see Anakin and Obi-Wan, they're flying their, what are those ships called? I know this is a specific name. I know you know.
Which ones? The ones they're flying?
Yes.
Jedi Starfighters.
Okay, yeah. So they're flying the Jedi Starfighters, and so far it seems like it's like a peaceful kind of flyby, and then it turns and they're having this giant battle over, I believe it's Coruscant, correct?
It's over Coruscant. Josh, you're not doing so well on the names so far.
Well, hey man, I mean, I know. Anyway, yeah, and like they're heading to go rescue Chancellor Palpatine because he got captured by General Grievous, and Count Dooku was kind of like keeping watch over him.
Yeah.
And this was kind of like the first time you see Anakin older, and he's kind of really, I guess, become a really just like a really good pilot in the.
He's got a scar now. It's a big deal.
Yeah, that's actually something that like I do. Of course, now we know where the scar came from, but
we don't. We still don't know. Canonically, we don't know.
They didn't cover that in the Clone Wars. I've only seen like the first 2 seasons.
This is something that I actually realized. I'm rewatching right now. If you're from my Twitter, you know that I'm rewatching the Clone Wars right now. And if you're interested in my Clone Wars rewatch, check out my Twitter down below. But no, I noticed this when I was rewatching the Clone Wars film because it's like the third thing canonically. He has the scar already, and I'm sure he has it in the first 2 episodes too. Like, we got this backstory in the original Clone Wars series that Asajj Ventress cut him, and that's how he got the scar when he battled her on Yavin 4, which is such a cool thing. I wish they kind of went back and did that. But as far as I know, we don't have a canonical story yet on how he got the scar, and at least it wasn't covered in the Clone Wars. So yeah.
See, I genuinely felt that they mind you, it's been a while since I've seen the movie or watched the series, but yeah, no,
you gotta watch the series. You gotta finish it. It's so good.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
so good.
When does the final season kind of premiere? Because I might
it says late 2019, so I'm hoping like mid-December. I don't know, right before episode 9 probably.
I can see them kind of like premiering it around the new Star Wars game.
Well, I'm thinking that they'll pull a DC Universe kind of thing and like have the Mandalorian air its like 6 to 8 episodes or 10 episodes. I don't know how many episodes Mandalorian is. I think it's 10. It's like air its 10 episodes, and then they'll start Clone Wars from there. That's kind of what I'm thinking they're gonna do. But late 2019 is when they say it's gonna start airing. I don't know if they pushed it to 2020 or not.
But like one thing I kind of noticed with with Revenge of the Sith, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like this was the first film where you like the droids actually kind of had like a personality, like they were like they had like actual dialogue. You've got this, like,
I don't know. I feel like we got a little bit of that at the end of Attack of the Clones, but for the most part, yeah, I'd give you that.
Yeah, like like the super battle droids are like they're like talking to each other, and like they're like cracking like jokes and stuff, and it's just like it was really interesting for me even as a kid to watch it, and even as me today watching it, kind of seeing how like I don't know, it just the droids just had like a different vibe. I guess like they gave them I don't know life. Because of course you see
Oh
a
yeah.
droid, like, okay, it's a droid. It's it's nothing really kind of like who cares if it dies? But then when you see them like getting like slashed up and they're screaming and stuff like that, like I remember as a kid, like I was actually sad, like
Oh,
when
come on.
no,
Don't
I'm
be
so
rooting for the battle. What's wrong with you?
I'm
They're
so
cannon fodder.
dude, no, I'm so serious. When Anakin and Obi-Wan like fly into the ship and the
Oh,
blast shields close or whatever, and like they're slicing up the droids and it cuts them going like like falling over. I felt so bad.
oh,
Like I was just
shut
like,
up.
oh dude, hey man, I'm being 100% honest here. I felt bad as a kid. Now I don't care. I'm just like, oh well. But I do remember back then I was a little kind of like a little sad about that. But but yeah, no, I felt like this, probably one of the strongest openings of a Star Wars film that
Oh,
I've
it's
seen.
probably the strongest. I like it so much. Like I'm a big fan of both Rogue One and A New Hope. Those are my top two. I don't think anything in Star Wars comes close. The Battle of Coruscant is so good. The fact that it's a one take for like half of it, is they're flying in, that opening shot is a whole one take until it cuts inside the cockpits. It's gorgeous. The CGI in that scene still holds up really well. There's
Oh,
other parts of the movie where it doesn't, but the space battle looks really, really good. We get Tamara Morrison as some of the clone troopers, Captain Jack, I believe, inside the ARC 170s. Some really good banter between Anakin and Obi-Wan, which we didn't get a ton of in Attack of the Clones. And then, of course, that develops more in the Clone Wars, their banter. But, like, it's really nice to see them, especially in this entire opening sequence as we keep moving through it. Like, this is really Anakin and Obi-Wan at their height, at their peak of their friendship, which only makes the ending more sad. But, of course, we really get that really nice relationship between the two of them. Almost to the point now where they're not really master and apprentice, but they're more like brothers. And of course, we know now that Anakin had already gotten and lost his own apprentice during the Clone Wars, which we didn't know at the time, but it adds a lot to his character and why Obi-Wan now treats him more as an equal and than as a Padawan.
I totally forgot about that. Yeah, like he was training Ahsoka at this time,
Well, I mean,
which kind of
Ahsoka had left by this point, but
because like I
right,
was
because you
wondering
haven't
like
seen the series.
after
Damn it, Josh. No, yeah,
wait
Ahsoka's
no
gone by this point. So he's gained,
spoilers.
taught, and then lost Ahsoka by this point. So that just adds so much more emotional weight to his character in this movie, which I love. I love, I love, I love. There's not a ton of that in there because obviously Lucas didn't know at the time, but like it still adds to his character and his growth and makes, the more loss that he has, um, helps kind of develop that character and why he turns in this film.
Yeah. Yeah. It's also something I've noticed, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but like I noticed that like just the Jedi as a whole, they wear like a lot of like tan, robes and like garments and stuff like that. And Anakin seems to be the only one who, and that's something I noticed during the fight with Dooku, that he's the only one who kind of wears like a dark robe, like a dark,
Yeah,
just a dark
no.
outfit in general. And I felt like that was just like so like symbolic of just the impending downfall that Anakin has, throughout the course of the film. And I just found that like to be like super interesting that like he immediately kind of stands apart from the other Jedi because he looks completely different. Like he doesn't dress like them. The Jedi kind of usually dress in the same uniform because like like we're a team, we're together, we're a family, whatever. But like Anakin's always kind of been the quote unquote outsider, I guess. I just found that really intriguing because I actually rewatched it today, which is why I was just like, yeah, no, I'll be on in like 40 minutes because I was
Yeah, I was
watching it with
gonna
you.
watch it, and then I didn't know how long you were gonna be, so I didn't watch it. But I'm glad you did, because the whole point of this podcast is like I want my guests to like talk about the things that they love in Star Wars and kind of how my relationship works with that. But like,
Right.
I want it to focus on you and your relationship with Revenge of the Sith. So that's good. I'm glad you rewatched it. I'm pretty familiar with that one. It's one of the more stuck ones in my head where like I remember most of it. Um, but no, back to your point just about the dark robes. Like at the time, Really, we didn't have a lot of Jedi that wore dark robes. It was definitely a symbolic, like, thematic choice to have Anakin wear darker robes.
Mm.
Um, Lucas was very good at that kind of thing, which I've always appreciated his cinematic symbolism. Now we've kind of seen the Clone Wars. Kiadi Mundi, which is the tall-headed dude, for those of you who don't remember.
Oh, the cone-headed guy? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
He has brown robes. And Plo Koon also has brown robes as well. There's other Jedi too, but Anakin's are probably the darkest.
Yeah, like his is just straight black. Cause I don't mean to jump ahead, but I kind of, if you cut to the scene in the Jedi Council after Palpatine kind of says he wants him to be like his guy on the Jedi Council, and I'm looking around and I'm like, man, like a lot of these Jedi are just not really, don't really wear something like that. And then I kind of remember how it was in the Clone Wars when they're on the Battle of Geonosis or whatever, or like where they're kind of like fighting and like everyone's kind of wearing like the same thing, and I was just like, man, it's really interesting that they chose to put Anakin in a dark attire. And then I realized, I'm like, wait, no, this was on purpose. George Lucas specifically had him wear this because it just fits. It's just, I don't know, it just makes sense. So it was really kind of clever to. I know it wasn't the first person in the world to catch that, but for me, it was like, oh wow, it's actually really interesting that they decided to kind of go that route, and like it's like hidden in plain sight, kind of like the darkness is that's like stirring inside of him, but like kind of being able to see that, it's just like, oh hey, look at that, that's awesome.
It's kind of like Palpatine wearing red robes.
You're right.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. It's a really good little symbolic thing. It also sets him and Obi-Wan apart, which I really like.
Mm-hmm.
And then they kind of carried that thread through. I mean, even in Attack of the Clones, his robes were more brown, but they were not as dark as they are in Revenge of the Sith. So I definitely give you credit for that one. It's something I pick up on, but like not something I really think about all that often. So I'm glad you brought that one up. Let's talk about the Dooku fight, part 2.
Yeah,
it's really good. I like it a lot.
Yeah.
There's some pretty bad CGI now, but like mostly with Obi-Wan. As an Obi-Wan fan, I don't really like this fight. He really gets like thrown around. And then there's just some really bad CGI on him. But that's not the point of the scene, so like I understand. Anakin does really well. Obviously, he kills Dooku. The whole dynamic between him and Palpatine is great. It kind of starts. We of course get further development that Lucas in general had been setting up Palpatine and Anakin throughout the entire Clone Wars, or Attack of the Clones and the Phantom Menace, and then we got more of that in the Clone Wars. And I mean, the dual-bladed lightsaber is cool, like him dual wielding, I should say. It's a really nice symbolic moment of like the two sides. I love the look that Dooku gives him when Palpatine says kill him, because Dooku obviously knows. Props to Dooku though for not spoiling Palpatine's secret. I'll give him credit for that. That was pretty sick. If I was Dooku, I definitely would have been like, this dude's a Sith Lord. Especially since Dooku was a former Jedi, and we've been getting a lot more information about Dooku this year in particular. He got his own audiobook, and he got his own comic book, and we've been getting a lot more about that character, and he's super compelling too. Of course, played by the great late Christopher Lee. But no, how do you feel about this fight, Josh? Do you like this one? Is this one like part of the movie you don't like? I don't know.
I definitely do like it because it's kind of like that. I guess like Anakin's payback, and this is something that even Palpatine mentions. Hey, like he cut off your arms. It's only natural for you to take your revenge on him. So it was really nice to kind of see see Anakin and Obi-Wan fight together, which was something that when they first fought, when they first faced off the first time, Anakin was very stubborn, he was very arrogant, he was very overconfident in his abilities to face off against Dooku to where he lost his arm. But to kind of like see him, I guess, actually fight alongside Obi-Wan, and of course, I mean, obviously, we all know the outcome of that battle, but it was nice to see Anakin just like a little bit more calm, a little bit more collected, kind of more focused on the fight and not like the anger that he had or anything like that. And then that's something that you had mentioned, when he cuts off both of Dooku's hands and he grabs the red saber and he holds them at his neck, kind of to see that duality, that light and that dark, that was already inside of him. Because the whole thing with his mother and the Tusken Raiders, we saw that little glimpse of the dark side in him then, and then I guess him physically holding both sides in his hands, and then Palpatine ordering him to kill Dooku and all that stuff. Um, actually, this was a really great fight. I really enjoyed it. You see, I found something really interesting. That was, like I said, I was watching it earlier today, and when Obi-Wan kind of gets pushed to the side and he has to face off against those super battle droids, they like completely miss him,
Oh
and they're
yeah,
like
I saw that on Twitter the other day, and
yeah,
that's part of the reason I said the CGI was so bad in the scene. He just like is frolicking up the stairs, and they just
yeah,
miss him so badly.
yeah, no sense of urgency running up those stairs, and he's just slashing the lightsaber. And I was like, he's like, the droids do not hit him, and they're like 4 feet from his body. And I was just like, all right. I mean, but the thing, like, I accept stuff like that. Like, stuff like that doesn't bother me taking out of the movie because it's just, I don't know. I kind of view this movie with rose tinted glasses because it's, you know, my second favorite Star Wars film of all time. But I did enjoy the fight. I do wish it was a little bit longer. I feel like once Obi-Wan kind of got knocked out of the fight, that it ended really quickly. But I mean, the movie has a lot to get through in like a 2 hour and 20 minute runtime, so I wasn't too bummed about that. But uh, I probably I'd probably say it's the second best fight in the film.
Oh,
Yeah, I'd probably say
I
it's the
know.
second best fight in the film.
What?
Yeah, I'm not. We'll get into
I
it.
know.
But
I'm trying to think. There's
yeah,
like 4 good fights in this movie that I
yeah.
can think of off the top
Uh,
of my head.
Wait, four?
Yeah.
I thought it was like three.
No, you got
Uh,
this one: Obi-Wan versus Grievous, Yoda versus Sidious, and then Anakin
right.
versus Obi-Wan. So there's
I
like
don't,
there's 4 big fights in the movie that I
I
count.
don't, I don't know why, but like for some reason in my mind, I always combine the Sidious and Yoda fight with the Obi-Wan and Anakin one. Probably because they're
Well, they
literally
go side by
happening
side,
back to
yeah.
back. So it's like they're literally happening simultaneously. So I guess that's why in my head I do that. But yeah, no, this is probably probably like the third best fight in the film for me.
Speaking of length of this like film, um, do have you seen all the deleted scenes?
I have, but it's been a long time. I mean, I remember there was a couple where, well, there was one in particular that I remember where they were fighting like some super battle. Not no, not the, what's the name of those rolling droids again? Damn it,
Droidicas.
Droidicus. Dang it, I know that. I don't know why I didn't think. Yeah,
Well, I
when
mean,
they were
they're
fighting
also
the,
destroyer droids, but their
okay,
official term is droidicas.
yeah, yeah, it's been a while since I've seen any of the deleted scenes.
Yeah. Well, no, because the reason I ask is because that entire opening sequence of like them in the Battle of Coruscant and the ship and everything originally was like an hour and 20 minutes.
Wow, really?
And there's so much deleted footage. There's a great scene where Anakin and Obi-Wan approach Grievous like in the middle of a hallway, and Grievous has Shaak Ti, which is the red Togruta. You know who Shaak Ti is, right?
Yeah, yeah, no, it is.
And then Grievous like stabs her through the chest. She in that version, I guess, because that's not her canonical death. She dies like 4 times in canon, or in different times. Yeah, she dies like 3 times in the movie, and then she dies again in like a vision in the Clone Wars. So there's a lot of ways that she dies. Anyway, this is one of them. And in this version, that one lines up with the end of the original Clone Wars series from 2003, where she was protecting Palpatine before Grievous kidnapped Palpatine, and then he captured Shaak Ti as well. And then she apologizes in this deleted scene to Anakin and Obi-Wan for failing. She gets stabbed in the chest, and then Anakin and Obi-Wan like escape, go into this like water duct within the ship, get chased down by super battle droids, electrocute them and explode them. It's like a whole action sequence. I really like the deleted scenes. Like, I wish they were still in there. As we move through the movie, I'll talk about some of the other deleted scenes that are in, because this is one of the few movies that like I really watch the special features for. as a kid, and I love like almost every deleted scene in this movie that I can think of right now. But no, this opening sequence was supposed to be a lot longer. It's still really good, but I feel like you could have done like a whole half a movie or like an entire arc of like episodes of Clone Wars in this ship, which I really like. Let's move up to the bridge scene. So obviously, like they escape with Palpatine. They have the whole elevator thing. They get carried up the elevator shaft. It's not like the most exciting moments of the film, but obviously they get captured. And then they're aboard the bridge, and then they have the fight with Grievous and the Magna Guards. I like this sequence a ton. I like that Grievous like goes out the window into space and crawls along the outside of the ship to the escape pod and stuff. I love Grievous's cough. That was also established in the Clone Wars, the original one. A lot of that lines up.
Really? I didn't. Huh.
Yeah. Actually. So in that one, Mace Windu like crushes his chest or whatever. It might be Ki-Adi-Mundi. One Jedi crushes his chest in that, and that's how he gets the cough. That was never explained in Clone Wars. They just kind of gave it to him. That's one reason I really like that original Clone Wars series, is because it connects so well to Episode 2 and Episode 3, because Lucas was involved and like wanted it to be the bridge between the two. But no, anyway, the bridge scene is cool. I like the Magna Guards. I like that they can fight without their heads. It's a really cool technique. I recently found out that they're actually like assassin droids. So they're like the same kind of droids as like IG-88 and IG-11. Like they're based off of that kind of model in universe, which is really cool. And they can fight without their heads, and they have the really cool staffs, the purple electricity. Grievous, of course, has his lightsaber collection that we get established. Something that I wanted to note about the Clone Wars new series is that I really like is that throughout that entire series, to line up with the bridge scene, Anakin and Grievous never meet face to face. Because in the bridge sequence, Anakin and Grievous meet for the first time, and Anakin notes that he thought Grievous would be taller or something like that. I can't remember what he said.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what he said.
That lines up with the new Clone Wars series, which I thought is a great touch. But no, what do you think about that whole? And then we could talk about it as like the crash into Coruscant and stuff. That whole section of the film right there.
I really did enjoy that scene. You had mentioned just a little bit ago, like that was the first time that him and Anakin kind of mentioned because that was the first time that he was like, oh yeah, I figured someone with your reputation would be a little bit older, and then Anakin remarked by saying, oh yeah, no, I figured you'd be taller. The lightsaber that Grievous has before he kind of gets Anakin and Obi-Wan's. Do you remember at all whose lightsaber that might be? Or that's like his own personal lightsaber, or what? Like, do you?
So he collects them from Jedi. Specifically, I don't know. I'm sure there's like an actual character. We know he takes a couple lightsabers throughout the new Clone Wars series, and he takes a bunch in the old Clone Wars series, including one from Shaggy from Scooby-Doo. That's a thing.
What?
There's a character in the Clone Wars, the original one, the Samurai Jack animated one, called Shaggy. And he looks exactly like Shaggy from Scooby-Doo. And like he's a Jedi, and he yells really loud and like freaks out like Shaggy does in Scooby-Doo, and he runs out and he gets stomped on by Grievous because he's like a Padawan and he's impatient and he's freaking out. It's the funniest thing. You have to look up the clip. It's so funny.
I had no idea about that. That's sick.
Because it aired on Cartoon Network at the time, and I think Scooby-Doo was on Cartoon Network back then too. So no, that's a whole thing. I don't know. I want to say he takes Eth Koth's lightsaber in the new Clone Wars, but to answer your question specifically, no, I don't know whose lightsaber he's wielding. He doesn't have his own. Every lightsaber he has is one he's taken from a Jedi he's killed, which I think is a really cool tidbit about him that like people often look over. He's got like 8 of them, which is just insane.
Yeah, no, I didn't know that at all. I figured that like he had like his own personal one, but like I used to like to collect them. But yeah, I did like the scene. I didn't really think too much about it. Like I never really kind of like dove into like reasons why I liked it. It was just one of those scenes where I watched and I was just like, okay, yeah, this is cool. We need another action set piece to kind of get them out of the situation and kind of get them out of being captured. Uh, I did find it. I at first I didn't realize that, like, oh wait, Grievous can breathe in space until like after he's like just casually walking and jumps into the escape pod and blasts off. The
Technically, he shouldn't be able to.
Really?
Well, he's got human lungs,
Mm-hmm.
as far as I know. He's got a heart, or not human lungs, I should say, but like lungs. Um, Maybe he doesn't. I don't know like what specific parts he still has. Like we know he has a heart, because Obi-Wan shoots that. I don't know what else is like inside of his abdomen still. I'm gonna assume based on that scene he doesn't have lungs. So I don't know actually, but I like that I love that concept of the character. He's such an interesting character, like a non-force sensitive, lightsaber wielding Jedi killer that also leads the droid army. He's such an interesting character. And a backstory that I would love to get in canon again. His Legends backstory is so good. And they've reestablished like parts of it in canon, but like I'd really want that whole story fleshed out again. Any last thoughts on the bridge before we kind of move forward into the plot of the film?
No, yeah, no. I think we covered everything on that aspect.
So no, yeah. They get back to Coruscant. Obi-Wan has to debrief the council. Anakin has to talk to the politicians. He runs into Padme. Padme's like, "Hey, I'm pregnant. Way to go." Um, which is just
Nice.
dumb.
Oh wait, actually, hold on a second. One and obviously you know I'm a novice when it comes to like Star Wars knowledge, and
Mhm.
you know this. This isn't like news to anybody, but like so when Anakin mentioned, he was like, yeah, he's like, we're not gonna talk about me saving your skin for the 10th time. Are those other times actually like shown in the Clone Wars?
Oh, I mean, he saves his ass a bunch.
Mm.
Like it just happens. I feel like that's more banter than anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a bunch of instances, of course, where like Anakin saves Obi-Wan, Obi-Wan saves Anakin. Their relationship in Clone Wars is really great. There's just so many good moments. But there are definitely times in Clone Wars where Anakin gets the best of Obi-Wan and can help him out.
Right.
Most recently that I can think of, I don't know. There's usually a lot of moral lessons too, where like Anakin wants to rush into a situation and Obi-Wan kind of makes him think about it, and he listens to Obi-Wan, which is great. But no, there are definitely moments where Anakin saves Obi-Wan. I don't think they were like specifically recounting 10 moments. That's definitely more banter. But no, there's definitely been opportunities in the Clone Wars where that's happened. But no, that's a good point. Yeah, no, back to Padme, which is something we'll talk about this a little bit. I raised this point in our group chat maybe like a month and a half ago because Pablo Hidalgo of the story group tweeted it out about exactly how long Revenge of the Sith is. If it takes place over like days or weeks, or if it takes over like months. Which is just such an interesting thing. I'm gonna have to look back and see like what he said was the actual answer, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. But no, I mean, most of this portion of the film is just like getting character moments with Anakin, if you want to call them that. Him just not being accepted as a Jedi Master, although being accepted on the Jedi Council. The whole plot of the Jedi Council wanting him to like be their sort of
Spy.
yeah, spy is kind of the word I was looking for, against Palpatine, and just like how all of those factors play into his character growth and change throughout the movie. Kind of any thoughts on that? I mean, like we're gonna dive into a little bit more details here, but like overall thoughts on that, Josh?
I just find it just really just interesting just throughout the entire movie how, and this I want to bring this up like later on, but I guess it's kind of like I'll segue into it after talking about this, but I just find it just really interesting just like how just his past, Anakin's past alone, kind of like just influenced his turn to the dark side. So you see what happens with his mother, with the Tuscan, was it the Tuscan Raiders? It's like the Sand People, whatever you want to
Yeah,
call
they're
them.
the same thing.
Which I found very interesting in the beginning of the movie where Palpatine's just like, you remember your mother and the sand people, and all you just hear is the. I just found that really funny. They just added that random sound clip of the Tusken Raiders kind
They've
of just
done it
like
in Clone
going in.
Wars too. It's pretty good. I like that.
Yeah, it's like little callbacks to things that have happened. But yeah, no, I found it very interesting that like from like the beginning, Palpatine just constantly just plants seeds in his head about like turning to the dark side or learning like portions of the dark side to save Padme and to save the babies and all that stuff. And one thing that I found kind of curious, and I'm not entirely sure like how I actually feel about it. Not how I feel about it, but like whether I think this is like how it actually happened. Do you think Palpatine gave Anakin that dream of Padme dying and like in order like to kind of like set in motion him turning to the dark side, or do you think it was just like him just capitalizing on Anakin kind of like having like these worries? Because I feel like you can go either way.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, there's it kind of depends on how you overall feel about Anakin and Palpatine's like relationship. It's been teased canonically that like Palpatine was directly responsible for the conception of Anakin Skywalker. And if you really take that to heart, then I would say that Palpatine has been like sort of sort of raising him this entire time. I'm trying to think of the word. But like then if you look at it that way, I would say yes. A grooming was the word I was thinking of, by the way. Like he's been grooming him this entire time. Um
And that actually makes sense because during the story that he's telling about Darth Plagueis the Wise, he mentions how he could like influence the midichlorians to create life. And if you paid attention to the Phantom Menace, you find out like yeah no like Shmi didn't get pregnant at all. She literally just like
well no, yeah.
had him. So
It's like the Jesus like parallel is what it is.
mm,
It's Anakin is supposed to be like paralleled with Jesus in that way, not as like an entire character. I'm not trying to get all like religious here. I'm not saying that
right.
Jesus is a bad person, like turns to the dark side or whatever. I'm just saying that like that aspect of Anakin Skywalker is definitely a parallel with Jesus.
Right, with like
Um,
yeah, like Mary getting all
yeah,
magically pregnant and stuff like that. Yeah.
yeah. No, I don't know. I like the idea that like the Force was the one that conceived Anakin, and then Palpatine like got his hands on it and like messed with it slightly. Um, but I still believe that like Anakin's dreams were his own. I don't think
Hmm.
that's something where Palpatine was planting like a seed in his head there. I think that was just a natural next step. Um, but that Palpatine had kind of like understood the situation. Like it's the same reason like I don't think Palpatine had nothing to do with the Sand People like capturing Shmi and killing her. It's just about like how he was grooming Anakin and taking advantage of opportunities. It's I mean, I don't think Palpatine was like responsible in a way for getting Ahsoka, you know, like banished. But like ultimately, I don't think that like his plan was to get Ahsoka kicked out of the Jedi Order and then like to like hurt Anakin more. His involvement doesn't always equate his direct like conception of that plan. Palpatine was working so many different avenues, and especially as we learn from the time period between Episode 3 and Episode 4, like Palpatine was doing so much, and like he had so many different contingency plans in place that even if Anakin had fallen through, like he had other options. There were so many, and that's kind of where the Inquisitors come in later down the line. Like there were a ton of Jedi that he had on his radar for that. Um, but yeah,
Interesting. Damn, look at you! Look at you with all the Star Wars knowledge, my man.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, no, I just yeah.
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, like, it's hard because I just fed you a ton of information, but no, I definitely just like overloaded your head.
Oh man,
But
no,
no,
I'm just sitting here just
absolutely,
nodding
like,
my head.
there's some possibilities there. Like, my favorite part, and Alex and I got into this a ton last week, is like there are so many avenues you can take Star Wars speculation where like if you look at something from one angle, you can like view it. There's like an entirely different plot line that you can view and like
Mm-hmm.
how things played out from different perspectives. We were talking about Kylo Ren last week and just how like the story of episode 9 can change in your head. Like how you think episode 9 could go changes so vastly from whether or not you think that the Knights of Ren are Luke's former like apprentices or not. Like depending on whether or not the Knights of Ren are force sensitive changes your entire perspective possibly on how the plot of episode 9 goes. And that's such a small detail to the overall plot. But like that's just Star Wars in general. Is you just have so many different ways to view things because that's what's good and ambiguous about Star Wars and why people like it so much. Is that like you just have so many different outlooks and views on things that you really could look at it from any perspective, and why from a certain point of view is such a popular line and now book in Star Wars. Is like you have so many different perspectives that really, if you're looking at it from one angle and I'm looking at it from a different angle, both of us could technically be right.
Right.
Right. um so no, I mean, moving into like the other parts of the plot, I did look into it. Like, I'd like to get your thoughts on this before I actually reveal it. So, like, this is a good time to mention it because we brought up Padme's pregnancy. But, like, do you see Revenge of the Sith spanning days or months?
I would probably say months, and the only reason why I'll say that is actually I feel like it's actually pretty obvious in the film. Now that I'm thinking about it, it's extremely obvious. Like it takes place over months because when Anakin originally gets back from from the whole Battle of Coruscant, when he's talking to Padme, she says, "Anakin, I'm pregnant." Now, if it were spanning over days, he could just look at her and see that she was pregnant, and then by the end of the film, of course, she's having Luke and Leia. She's having Luke and Leia. So I feel like it's extremely obvious that it takes place over days. But then again, you could also maybe argue that this isn't like a like natural pregnancy, because I mean it's natural in the form of the actual conception of the babies, but since they're force sensitive and this is a universe that things don't exactly operate the way that they do here on Earth, then maybe it could take place over days or even weeks. But if I'm basing it just off of how pregnancies just work in general, I'm inclined to say that it takes place over months.
Well, you'd be wrong.
Really?
Yeah, canonically, Revenge of the Sith is about 10 days.
Are you
No.
what?
Yeah, canonically, it's about 10 days. And there's a couple reasons why. Mostly relating to Padme's pregnancy. One, the idea is that Anakin has been gone for a really long time. So, like, he hasn't seen Padme in probably about, I want to say, like 5 or 6 months. Like, he's been off fighting. We know part of that was like the Battle of Mandalore, which we're going to see in Clone Wars. And just in general, he's been off fighting with Obi-Wan for about 5 or 6 months. Could be longer, could be the whole 9 months. Because obviously he didn't know until she came back. She also could have kept that a secret from him when he came back. But like, ideally, he's been gone for a really long time. The Clone Wars spanned, I want to say, 5 years. I want to say it was a 5-year war. So the idea is that for like the last year of the war, he's kind of been pretty much only away from Coruscant. The other aspect of Padme's pregnancy is that throughout production on Revenge of the Sith, even in that first scene, she Natalie Portman only had one prosthetic stomach, so like her like stomach size never changed throughout the production. But yeah, no, canonically it takes place over 10 days. And just Anakin didn't find out until much later. And then obviously like stress and a lot of other things that occurred during that 10-day period to Padme probably sped things up slightly. But ultimately like she was pretty much done by the time Revenge of the Sith even started.
Because I'm thinking that's really kind of crazy to I mean, of course, I can say whatever, but canonically that's exactly how it was. But like it's just really like wild to think that because like when he returns to Coruscant, like her stomach isn't like super big, and over the course of the film, her stomach gets bigger and bigger and bigger to the point where mind you, she's carrying twins, so it's going to be a little bit bigger than like a normal pregnancy. So it's really kind of wild to think that it took 10 days from when he returned to Coruscant to the end of the film, for like that's how long it is. That's just kind of nutty.
Oh, I lied, by the way. Clone Wars was 3 years, but basically
Well,
four
still,
years. But yeah,
yeah.
no. No, yeah. The idea was that I get where you're coming from. I
Mm,
think that they just like were hiding it for like obvious reasons in that opening scene, and then from there on out, she's roughly the same size. Um, but no,
yeah.
kind of pushing
Mm,
into the plot a little bit further. Obviously, everybody kind of gets split up. Anakin stays on Coruscant for the most part. Obi-Wan gets dispatched to Utapau. Yoda gets dispatched to Kashyyyk. Um, so you watched it. I'm trying to think exactly like what the order of events are from there. I know Anakin and Obi-Wan kind of send each other off. Trying to think if I missed any points in between, kind of when they get back and when Obi-Wan and Anakin send each other off. Um,
yeah, yeah.
is
No,
that
no.
scene in the
You're pretty
gunship
much
with? Sorry, is that
no,
scene
no.
with them in the gunship of Obi-Wan, Mace Windu, and Yoda? Does that take place in between there? I like that sequence, and I wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, yeah, that takes place. Like it was after they get back to Coruscant. After Anakin kind of has like the dream about about Padme dying. Then he goes to Palpatine, and he talks to him. Palpatine mentions how he wants him to be his eyes and ears on the Jedi Council, and then of course the Council doesn't really like that. And then from that scene, that's when you find Yoda, or Mace Windu, and Obi Wan in the gunship, kind of talking about like maybe we were wrong about Anakin being the chosen one, because
Right.
so yeah.
No, yeah, I really like that sequence. Like, there's a lot you can dive into with the Dark Plagueis sequence, which we'll get into too. But no, there's something about that scene in the gunship that I really like. It's just like this really intimate moment between these three characters that, while are very clearly close, not characters we see a lot on screen together. Um, I like that Mace Windu has had doubts from the start. I like that even Yoda has had doubts of Anakin from the start. Obi-Wan did too. Like, all three of these characters had always doubted Anakin. And then Qui-Gon, of course, kind of changed Obi-Wan's attitude on it. And Obi-Wan agreed to trade Anakin strictly because it was Qui-Gon's last wish. Um, and then Mace and Yoda, meanwhile, still were unsure. But at the time, the Jedi Order was so dysfunctional. Like, part of what I love, again, talking about the Clone Wars, but kind of setting up Revenge of the Sith, is that we were seeing so often that Jedi Padawans were being pushed up to knight status far too quickly without the proper training, because they just needed more generals in the battlefield. Characters like Nadar Veb, who is Amon Calamari, characters like Barriss Offee, who was never pushed up to Jedi Knight, and that carries into her whole arc too about why they didn't trust her versus other characters. And like, the Jedi Order as a whole was just so dysfunctional by this point and had lost their way. Now to be questioning the Chosen One prophecy above all else and trying to get more, scheming and more political, and it just, you really, from episode 1 to episode 3, see the unraveling of this organization. And I think that while the 10-year time period between episodes 1 and 2 was so good, and something we wanted to explore, by having that 10-year time period, you got a very drastic change from how the Jedi Order clearly used to operate and how it was operating in Attack of the Clones, and then furthermore after the Clone Wars in episode 3. And ultimately just, of course, led to their downfall. I just, there's a lot going on in that sequence, and there's a lot to be said about how they're viewing Anakin and why they're doubting him, and only just to add more to his character and why he just feels so betrayed by the end of this movie, and ultimately why he turns to the dark side.
Right. I definitely do now that we're kind of talking about it. Yeah, that scene definitely just kind of like in my mind, because very beginning of the prequels, this whole like prophecy, like, oh, chosen one's gonna come and he's gonna bring balance to the Force, and he's gonna defeat the Sith. And then to see Anakin kind of at the peak of his power, the peak of his ability in the Force, to see the people that he's looked up to and admired kind of begin to doubt him, doubt that he is who they originally kind of thought he was really kind of like messed up, but like understandable at the exact same time. I think Mace Windu's never really been a fan of Anakin Skywalker, just the way he kind of talks to him and the way he kind of treats him. You can tell right off the bat that he just does not trust this guy whatsoever. Um, and I think it's a lot more telling that Yoda, out of all people, is uh, beginning to doubt the prophecy because he's been the main Jedi who's just like, yeah, like no, like don't give up hope. He's a very inspirational Jedi, and then to kind of see him be like maybe we might have like maybe we misread this prophecy. Maybe he really isn't the one. Very interesting. And by the way, the CG in that scene absolutely phenomenal. I was
Oh, it's
watching it
so
because
good. It's
yeah,
still so good. That's one of the best scenes. It looks so
yeah,
good.
yeah, like the lighting, like there's because of course they shoot it on a blue screen, I believe, and just the lighting that like reflects off of their faces, and you see like the light shining in through Yoda's ears. Um, I think what really kind of like maybe go like, wow, that's really well shot. Is they go past a building, and then as soon as the building fades into the background, the way that the light hits Mace Windu's head just I was just like, ah man, I was like, this is really 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 well shot. I really appreciated it. I'm not even like a VFX guy,
No, me
but
neither.
like but you gotta give credit where credit's due, because that it's just really
But no, yeah, no, I definitely agree. I'm not a big CG guy myself, but I do like that it still holds up after all this time. And as you said, like you're not a VFX guy. I'm not really a VFX guy. But a lot of people don't know either that John Knoll, who is the co-creator of Photoshop, Adobe Photoshop, I think he's the co-creator.
mm,
I think he definitely had some partners on that. But like he's head of ILM. He's still running things over there. ILM in general is just top tier. They are the pioneers of CGI and visual effects and special effects and all that stuff. Um, and they've been the pioneers since Star Wars originally came out, which is just really great. And that's obviously something that carried through with the prequels and why most of the prequels still look really, really good. Um, Other than that, like, do you want to push into kind of just the different missions that each of our characters are kind of taking? I'd love to start with Yoda and Kashyyyk because that's kind of the smallest one, but like a really fun sequence that I really enjoy.
yeah. I mean, honestly, I didn't really think like too much of Kashyyyk. I think I as much as I love the Wookiees and as much as I love Chewbacca and I like the planet, yeah, I think like overall this is probably like my least favorite part of the movie is the like the whole Kashyyyk thing, because just I just feel like not a whole lot happens. Like yeah, you have the actual Battle of Kashyyyk, and it's visually like really great, but like overall it was kind of like one of those sequences in the film where I kind of just like didn't care too much about. Um, I'm not saying it's a bad sequence by any means like whatsoever, but it's just one that I didn't really kind of connect to all that much. Um, I was more invested in Obi-Wan kind of going to Utapau or however hell you say it.
No, that's
Um,
right. You're right.
oh, hey, look at that. Look at that, amazing. Yeah, no, I was much more invested in that, and I was much more invested about the stuff that was going on in Coruscant, with the Council and Anakin and Palpatine. Um, so yeah, did you want to talk about any of those sequences?
I mean, I really like Kashyyyk.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get into the other ones, like obviously, but I'm actually a big proponent for Kashyyyk. It's one of the best shot action sequences in the movie, in my opinion. And I don't know if you've heard this. I haven't looked into this a ton, but there are some like really solid theories out there that Steven Spielberg came in and like helped George Lucas shoot Episode 3. And that Spielberg was heavily involved in the directing aspect because Lucas had so much on his plate that like Spielberg was pretty much the one behind the camera the entire time. Particularly, they say in the way that like some of the more intimate moments are actually shot, like the Anakin and Padme moments, just the angles and the way like match a lot of what Spielberg does. But I definitely get like unlike any other Star Wars battle sequence except maybe the Battle of Scarif, the scene on Kashyyyk, like the way that is shot, is so realistic as it could be for a like Star Wars battle. Just the angles, like it feels very Saving Private Ryan-esque in the way that it's shot, and just the way that the whole war tone is set on that beach battle. Obviously those are all VFX shots anyway, but camera placement is super important and all that too. I don't know how much of the Battle of Kashyyyk is practical. I'm gonna assume not much, but still, like, having Spielberg's influence kind of lends itself to that theory. But no, I like how it's shot. I love the 41st Elite troops, which are obviously the camouflaged scout troopers and clone troopers. They're really great. And overall, like, it's good to see the Wookiees. Like, we know that in Return of the Jedi, George Lucas originally wanted them to go to the Wookiee home planet instead of Endor. They wanted it to be like the Wookiees versus the Empire. And that didn't work out for whatever reason. I don't know if it was just production costs or the amount of extras they needed or whatever it may be. So they ultimately went with Endor and the Ewoks instead. But I'm glad Lucas got to come back around on Kashyyyk, especially since the Wookiees play such an important part in the Empire. Because after the Battle of Kashyyyk and the rise of the Empire basically like captures Kashyyyk fully and uses the Wookiees as slave workers for almost like the entire Galactic Civil War. We know there was a liberation attempted by Saw Gerrera and Cal Kestis in the upcoming Jedi Fallen Order video game, which releases in November. Obviously that fails because they still have Wookiee slaves throughout basically the entire original trilogy. We see it referenced in Star Wars Rebels, where Kanan Jarrus and Ezra Bridger free a couple of the Wookiees. We see, of course, in Solo: A Star Wars Story, that Chewbacca's being used as a slave, both on Kessel and on Mimban. And then ultimately in the Aftermath book series, which takes place after Return of the Jedi, Han Solo and Chewbacca finally free the Wookiees at the end of the Galactic Civil War, which is just a great arc overall. But it's something that the new canon has really dived into, is just like this life debt between Han Solo and Chewbacca, and the fact that the Wookiees have been used for slave labor for like the entire Galactic Civil War. And that all stems from the fact that the Republic and the Separatists were like completely inhabiting Kashyyyk by the time of Episode 3, and then when the changeover happened, obviously the clones had already taken command of the beaches and then just turned their guns on the Wookiees, and it led to the Wookiee slave labor throughout the Galactic Civil War, which I know is just like a super big lore tidbit fest that I just threw on you, but
yeah,
it all plays a role. It's all important.
I promise you, I will never doubt your Star Wars knowledge again.
Thank you.
You're literally throwing so much stuff at me, and I'm not complaining whatsoever. Like, I'm learning a lot, and I like that. I appreciate
that. Thank you.
But yet, like,
this is why I didn't want to fuck with Tanner when he came into chat. Total
yeah,
side
no, but
note
like,
that
actually,
nobody
no,
knows about. But Tanner,
yeah,
we
that's
love
like
you
a
if you're
total
listening.
it's a total inside thing that like no one else really knows about. But actually, I didn't know that Spielberg kind of had like a lot of input with Episode 3.
Well, that's what the rumor is. Like, that's what people think. Because we know he was on set a bunch because him and Lucas are very good friends. I don't know. I'm sure it happened. But I'm sure that Spielberg didn't shoot like 90% of the movie like most people think.
Right? Yeah, it's not a Justice League situation over here.
Hey. This is a Star Wars podcast. No DC negativity over here. If you're gonna talk about DC, let's talk about good DC.
Yeah, like BVS. But no, yeah, but I think honestly, like, you had mentioned that, like, that Lucas wanted to visit the home planet of the Wookiees for like the climactic battle for Return of the Jedi. I feel like the reason why they didn't is probably because like they would have to create a lot of Wookiee suits.
Yeah, I think that's really what happened.
Yeah, like create like all those Wookiee suits would just be incredibly expensive. So like, all right, how about we just do like these little teddy bear like things? Which, by the way, by far like my favorite creature in Star Wars. I love Ewoks so much.
You do?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
They're like little teddy bears, dude.
I did not. Dude, I knew you liked them. I didn't know you loved them.
Dude, they're so adorable when he sits next to Lay on the log, and then he's like eating a little cookie he gave her.
I love
Dude,
Wicket.
dude, yeah, no, dude, they're just adorable, man. I love Ewoks, I really do. I know that we're totally going into like OT territory talking about
It's
Ewoks, but
okay. My Ewoks won the poll, by the way. I did a poll on my Twitter on Monday, or maybe it was Sunday, of Ewoks versus Porgs, and it was really close. It was like 49-51 like the whole time, and then Ewoks pulled out at the end. I think it was like 58-42 Ewoks. So
look at
yeah,
look at all
no.
those educated people, man.
I mean, I like the Ewoks more too, but like I thought the Porgs might win. Someone raised a really good point. Anyway, side tangent. There are plenty of those on this
I'm glad.
podcast. Um,
I'm glad you're kind of reining in because I was about to go somewhere. I was just like, no, I'm not even gonna do it. Never mind. Never mind. It's not bad, but like,
no, I know. I do want to circle back really quick because we didn't talk about it a ton. Just the whole Darth Plagueis sequence, in Revenge of the Sith is just I like that. I love that scene so much because like I know once we get into Utapau and like Anakin stuff, like we're just gonna go off to the end and forget about it. But no, I really like the Plagueis scene. Something that I also really like, not to like get all speculative again about the sequel trilogy, but the music that plays during that sequence, scored by John Williams, is nearly identical to Snoke's theme in either The Force Awakens or The Last Jedi. I think it's The Force Awakens, which is really interesting to me still. Like, I still think Snoke could be Darth Plagueis, and not that it's going to play a factor into Episode 9 at all. We're actually going to talk a little bit about Episode 9 at the end, because I like to ask my guests a few things about Episode 9 at the end of the podcast. So be ready for that, Josh. But no, ultimately, like, I just think that, you know, that whole scene is really powerful. Like, you get a ton of backstory on Palpatine indirectly. Obviously, we know that he was Plagueis' apprentice, and like he was the one that slaughtered him, but there's just so much suggested there, and it's really the tipping point for Anakin. And then obviously we get the scene afterwards where like Palpatine admits that he was a Sith to Anakin, like, and you get that whole sequence as well. But like this is really, I think, the tipping point of the film, because obviously Anakin like wants to save Padme. He's haunted by what happened to his mother. He doesn't want it to happen again. And I think it even plays more factors when you like he lost Ahsoka. And like he doesn't want to lose anyone else. He's already lost his mother. He's lost his apprentice. Like he could lose Obi-Wan. Like it's a lot of things. He lost Qui-Gon too, you could even say. And like the fact that he doesn't want to lose Padme, and that Palpatine offers this like way out for him necessarily. It's just a really powerful scene, and one of the better ones in the film. Like it's a really good character intimate moment. I also just like aesthetically like the opera. They're at an opera. Star Wars operas look really cool.
I didn't know what that was, man.
That's an opera. But no, like, what do you think about that scene, Josh? Is that something like I totally went like super like thematic on that, but
Well, no, you're right to do so because there are definitely a lot of thematic elements, and that's definitely the one that kind of really stood out to me was Palpatine kind of playing off Anakin's kind of inability to save the people that he loves in his life. Of course, you mentioned his mother, and that he had Ahsoka, and now he's seemingly about to lose the love of his life, and possibly the children that that he's created with her, and I feel like in this scene, kind of Palpatine becomes like a little bit more confident in being able to kind of tell things stuff, even though he's not outright saying, "Oh yeah, no, I was Darth Plagueis' apprentice." He's kind of like he's just alluding to it like super heavily,
right.
and then like Anakin's still not really catching on because he has a one-track mind. He's like, all I want to know is how to save my wife, how to save my kids, and Palpatine's just like, all right, well, I'm gonna tell him. I'm basically going to tell him in so many words that I am a Sith without actually telling him, all while at the exact same time enticing him to the dark side even more by mentioning that his master gained the ability to save people. And he mentions that like he was like, yeah, like he taught his apprentice everything he knew. And when he said that, I was just like, wait a second, does this mean that Palpatine does know how to, kind of like save people from death? Because when he, I know I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but like when he officially kind of turns Anakin to the dark side, he was just like, he's like, I'm sure I think we'll be able to discover the secret, but I feel like he already knew it. I feel like he already knew the secret to saving people, because I mean, at least in my opinion, I think Palpatine is the reason why Padme dies. I think he cuts off that final connection to the light side by killing Padme. So then Darth Vader becomes complete dark side, complete Sith. Um,
Oh, that's interesting.
yeah, right.
Oh, we'll get into that. But
Yeah.
again, like that could all play into like how Palpatine comes back in 9. And I have a
Right.
whole
Yeah, see,
theory on that. But like,
yeah, no, I was literally about to say, like, I wasn't gonna get too much into it, but I feel like that scene at the opera where he tells the story about Darth Plagueis the Wise, I feel like that's gonna play a part in Episode 9. I don't
yeah,
know how, I don't know, which way they would go about it, but I definitely do feel like that is going to play a part of like how Palpatine comes back in some form. I'm not saying physically comes back, although I hope he does. But I definitely feel like that scene kind of alludes to, like, some abilities that Palpatine has that we don't know about.
yeah. No, I touched on it with Alex last week. But I definitely think that Palpatine and like him coming back plays a part to that. I'm not gonna like completely redo my theory here, but a lot of what I believe requires resurrection in the form of the dark side requires multiple dark side relics, as well as just an understanding of like how dark side essences work, and that all ties into Charles Soule's Darth Vader comic, and of course the stuff with Plagueis. And I don't think it's as simple as just like you can resurrect yourself. I think there's a lot of material parts that are required for that. And Alex and I talked about that a little bit last week because it was just part of the Episode 9 and Kylo Ren discussion and where that was going. I would like to see Palpatine come back physically. Right now, I'm a little closer to believing that Palpatine's essence will be coming back and corrupting Kylo Ren. That's kind of where I'm sitting on it. And ultimately, like we know, in between episodes 3 and 4 specifically, Palpatine was heavily looking into how to sustain himself for a longer life. One of which requires time travel, which was used in the World Between Worlds episode of Star Wars Rebels. And it's not your traditional time travel. So if Zane and Chris are listening, there's no time travel in episode 9. That seems to be a very common theory that was built off of a purely satirical podcast episode of Red Letter Media. And there's not going to be time travel in episode 9. And if there is, they better do it really well for me not to be upset about it. But anyway, no, I just think that there's a lot more to Palpatine's like plans. Like obviously we know after Return of the Jedi, he had Operation Cinder, which was his whole contingency plan in the case of his death. While I think that Palpatine has a better understanding of how to cheat death, I don't think he fully knew, and I don't think Plagueis fully knew either. I think that they were very close, and Palpatine and Plagueis kind of work very close, as I said, and Palpatine carried that forward and continued to look for things and ways to do it. And I do think that Palpatine discovered it but was unable to finalize it, but that there might still be things lying around in Palpatine's records that would indicate how to do it, and that kind of ties into 9 for me. But ultimately, as I was just going back to Revenge of the Sith and like that scene, there's just, as you said, there's just a lot of good stuff going on there, and what your connections between like Palpatine learning everything that Plagueis taught him and the rule of 2, and how that rule was essentially broken during the prequels too, because you had Maul, Dooku, Asajj Ventress, General Grievous. Like there was a lot more than just sort of 2 Sith lying around. And then if you add Savage Opress and the fact that Maul survived, and Palpatine tried to mend the rule of 2 to his best ability, and it's by the end of Revenge of the Sith, obviously, like he succeeded in mending the rule of 2. All of his leftover like threats, other than Maul was still alive, but he didn't view Maul as a threat anymore by the time of the end of Revenge of the Sith. And then this is another conversation, but obviously the development of the Inquisitorius program and the fact that they are all technically Sith, how that plays a factor into the rule of two. But essentially, by the end of Revenge of the Sith, the rule of two was restored, and it was Palpatine's plan for Vader to succeed him, I would assume, and then Luke to be his apprentice, or for Luke to slay both Palpatine and Vader, and Luke to succeed him. But I'm kind of getting off track. I go on these little lore tangents, but anyway.
Oh, man. I'm just sitting here just soaking it all in. I'm enjoying myself right now.
But no, let's kind of, I mean, we dove into that scene the best we could without like spreading out too much into the different aspects of Star Wars lore. Let's talk about Utapau. Obi-Wan is my favorite canonical character. It's probably my favorite character anyway. I'm not a big fan of any Legends characters like some people are. So he's just my favorite character. And this scene is just, this whole sequence is just everything I love about Obi-Wan. Ewan McGregor is my favorite Star Wars actor. He's one of my favorite actors, period. Looking forward to him in Birds of Prey. Just a DC plug. I recently found out that he thinks that Kylo Ren's like crossguard lightsaber is really stupid, and then they like integrated that into Battlefront 2, and I just love that fact too. I desperately want a Kenobi series. But no, Utapau, really great. I love the chase sequence between Grievous and Obi-Wan. I don't know how Josh feels about it. I have a feeling I know how he feels about it. I've talked about it with my other friends. Some people really hate that entire sequence. I think it's great. I love it so much. I love Commander Cody in the 212th Battalion and that entire sequence. So good. There's so much going on. It's like pure Obi-Wan and like peak Obi-Wan. And I love the concept of Utapau too, especially since Anakin and Obi-Wan went there during the Clone Wars. We later found out it's not Obi-Wan's first time there. It's not the Republic's first time there. No, it's just such. I love their aliens too. The dude with the weird teeth, like the gray like skin, and
it's like super tall. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I mean, what are your general like overall thoughts, or like even specific thoughts on like the Battle of Utapau and all the stuff with Obi-Wan and Grievous?
I definitely did really enjoy the whole sequence on Utapau, minus a particular part which I'll get to here in a little bit. I remember when I first saw the film, and you see after that guy, the guy with the weird teeth, does he have an actual name? Do we know?
Oh, he definitely does, but don't ask me. That's okay. My lore only goes so far.
Okay.
I definitely do not know his name, but it's not important enough for me to know.
Yeah, like after that guy tells him like, yeah, no, Grievous is here. You know, they've got thousands of battle droids. You know, like we need help. And Obi-Wan kind of goes back into the ship and it flies away, and then you see Obi-Wan back on the ground. I was just like, are there two Obi-Wans? Like, I thought they were about to go into like some weird like timey-wimey type stuff.
Oh, Jesus.
Obviously he ended up being a hologram, and and then R4 was the one who was kind of like flying the ship back up to orbit.
That's not. But I don't think that's what happened.
Are you really?
No,
that's what I thought.
That's not what happened. No, he's not a hologram. No, he's not a hologram. His droid just dropped him off, and then they took off. He did a lap. Like they didn't. I don't think you don't see it in the film, but like I'm pretty sure he just does a lap around the dome and he like hops out, and then like his droid just flies off. He's not a hologram, Josh.
No, that's the way I saw. The way I saw it was like it was like a hologram, and I feel like that makes sense. I mean, it's Star Wars.
They don't have holograms like that.
Really?
No.
Yeah, I feel like they do. They've got. I mean,
they definitely don't.
What's the guy with the big head again?
Snoke.
Long head.
What? No. Oh, Ki-Adi-Mundi.
Yeah, when he was sitting in the Jedi Council, that was a full blown. Obviously, he's blue hologram.
That's the difference. Holograms are blue.
I don't know.
That's what makes it a hologram.
That's just what I thought. I didn't think that he would do a lap and then Obi-Wan would jump out and kind of just like go, because like it's the way that it's cut together.
It's definitely cut that way. I'll give you that, but like it's not a hologram.
Okay, yeah, because the way it was cut together, I totally thought it was a hologram, which is why I never really thought about it again. But moving on to the actual fight between Obi-Wan and Grievous, I just found it just like it's very Obi-Wan-esque of him to literally just jump into essentially the Lion's Den, surrounded by nothing but battle droids. He has no allies that are there right now. He's about to face off against Grievous, and probably like one of the best oh shit moments for me at least in Star Wars is revealing that General Grievous has two other appendages.
Oh,
He's got
that's
two
cool.
other
Yeah.
arms, and like all those lightsabers that he's collecting aren't just for just for show. No, he's actually going to use these in a fight. Just like completely over the top, completely extra, but like badass at the exact same time. And then you have the classic Obi-Wan kind of like Clone Wars slash prequel stance, which I
Yeah.
really like. I don't know what about it I like so much.
It doesn't
Just
really
with just
make a lot of sense, but it looks really cool.
I feel like it does because he has his fingers kind of like almost like he's giving like the peace sign, and like the lightsaber kind of lines up in between that. I feel like it's like him kind of just like
Well, no, it looks
having the person
cool.
like in his sights. I don't know. I just really like it.
It's probably
On the,
based on some really old like Japanese samurai art or like
I
stance. Like I'm sure there's some very great symbolism behind it that I just have no idea, and I sound really ignorant right now. Um, because Star Wars is usually deeper than that. Hell, there's like 7 different forms of combat and like 7 different hit points that a Jedi should never cut off, including across the waist, which is why the kill move on Maul was so interesting. Anyway, sorry.
Hmm.
Back to.
But I enjoyed the entire fight. And then of course the clones kind of show up, and they're battling the droid army, and then the whole like chase sequence. And I feel like most like as much as I love that kind of beginning fight with Obi-Wan and Grievous, I just feel like that chase just takes up way too much time of that fight. It's like they're playing tag, and it's just like I'm not a huge fan of it. um, but I do think that like once they kind of get back on their feet, and they're going at it. Like I love that scene where Grievous is trying to step on Obi-Wan's face, and Obi-Wan rolls out of the way, and he kicks him, and he just realizes like, no, this dude's just like pure metal. Like you're essentially fighting a droid at this point. Um, I thought that was pretty good. Um, I don't know, weird. General Grievous making like weird like karate noises while he's like backhanding Obi-Wan across the face. Uh,
You like the little spider move that he does?
Oh, tell me when he flips into the
The six, and he starts crawling away after he gets his 2 hands cut off.
yeah,
He like crawls back to his I don't know what it's called, his bike.
it's like a mechanized unicycle or
Yeah,
something
it's
like
definitely
that.
called a bike. I just don't know what it. I don't think it's a speeder bike. It's not what they call it. Anyway,
But yeah, no, that scene is the first time you see that, and like you had mentioned previously during the episode, was that General Grievous has human organs. Surprisingly,
oh, it's a wheel
you only
bike. Sorry,
oh
it's
okay.
called.
Yeah, you see the General Grievous has human organs, which I know I was surprised because I mean the way he talks, the way he carries himself, in the fact that he's asthmatic, um, I guess didn't make me to believe that he had any kind of human organs. So it was really interesting to kind of see that General Grievous has a weak spot, and then of course Obi-Wan kind of takes him out. Um, I remember watching that movie and kind of being like, oh man, I want to see more of General Grievous. But then of course there's a lot of General Grievous in the Clone Wars TV series, like a lot of it.
There's a good
Um,
amount. Yeah,
yeah. Um, and see talking about this now makes me want to go watch the show again, which I definitely will because I want to watch the last season.
so
Um,
good.
but yeah, no, I really enjoyed that sequence, kind of seeing how Jedi can fight without their lightsabers, because you always um and Obi-Wan's always like, oh this weapon is your life, and then to have him lose that and have to kind of adapt to the situation that he's in against Grievous was really interesting to kind of see, because it's not something you see very often, if ever, in in the Star Wars movies, um at least up to this point. But yeah, no, I do like this scene. Aside from that whole chase sequence, I feel like just went on just a little bit too long. I think it was a really solid fight. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, I like the Huda Pouch chase sequence. As I said, I'm a big fan of Boga, his lizard. It's just a small thing, but like, it's so cool. And I don't really. It sounds like a bird. Think. I don't know
I don't
how
know
I
what
would
it sounds
describe
like.
that noise, but it sounds really cool. I probably died on that fall though. We'll get into Order 66 in a minute because this ties directly into Order 66.
All right. Ooh,
Okay, go ahead.
One thing I want to mention, and this was actually before Obi-Wan leaves to go to Utapau, like the visual storytelling that you see during that last conversation, that last friendly conversation that Anakin and Obi-Wan have,
Oh yeah, it's great.
where Obi-Wan is standing in the light and Anakin's shrouded completely in darkness.
Yeah, it's great.
And I was just like the visual storytelling is just freaking beautiful in that scene. It's like definitely like my top scenes in that movie. Um, just like next scene, realizing that the next time they see each other, they're gonna be at odds. And Anakin's gonna be trying to take his freaking head off.
Yeah.
Very. I don't know. I'm just thinking about like if that was me, like I had seen my friend, and then the next time I saw him, he would completely change, and he was trying to kill me. Like how I would feel about that, and it's just like I don't know. To me, this is a little hard hitting because it's just like, man, like these guys were brothers. These guys were closer than they had ever been before in this movie, and that was their last. That was like their last conversation, really, in a lot of ways. So
Then the
really,
movie
really
did its
enjoyed that scene.
job,
Yeah.
essentially. No, yeah, that's something good. We touched on it, but I'm glad you circled back to that conversation. It's a good one. Um, Hello There is great. We didn't even mention that. It's like a meme now.
Love it.
It's so good. I love him so much. Something we don't really know, like it exists here. The separatists leaders are getting kind of moved around this entire movie. We see a lot more of them in the Clone Wars, but they do get showcased here. They were on Utapau when Obi-Wan arrives, and they get shipped off to Mustafar, where they ultimately die at the hands of Anakin Skywalker. I'd love to do an episode sometime. It's such an underrated aspect of the Clone Wars and just of the prequel trilogy in general, like the separatist movement, because it's literally a political party, and just how those were just dudes who were trying to make the galaxy better. Like even Dooku for a while, like Dooku led the separatist party, and he just wanted to make the galaxy a better place ideally. Like he knew roughly what Palpatine's plan was, and yes, he was a Sith, but all in all, Dooku just wanted a better galaxy, and so did the separatists. And then their droid army was just kind of fueled through Palpatine's agenda and Dooku's agenda. And then they kind of died because the whole party died at the end of the war, because they had to disband both the Republic and the separatist movements in place of the Empire. But no, those I've always liked the politics in Star Wars. I know most people don't. I think that they're really well done. I know people think they're boring, and technically they are. But there are a lot of politics in this one too. And I'd probably gonna circle back to it because I think we might have skipped over it. There are deleted scenes and stuff going on during these sequences. So before we go into Order 66, let's talk a little bit about this. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, it's this movie where Palpatine receives direct power from Jar Jar Binks, right? There's that scene in the Senate, and Jar Jar
No, I think
is that Attack of the Clones?
Yeah, it was Attack of the Clones. Yeah, no,
Okay.
Jar Jar literally has he says the only words Jar Jar speaks in this movie is "excuse me," and I'm not bullshit. That's literally all
I'm
he
pretty
says.
sure he does. No, so that's a scene in Attack of the Clones. I wasn't sure if that was basically they give Palpatine emergency powers over. Yeah, that's Attack of the Clones. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
But no, it's just during this whole sequence. There's a bunch of deleted scenes which I touched on a couple weeks ago in an article actually on our former website about these deleted scenes and the rebellion, and how the rebellion was being formed in Revenge of the Sith, but they just didn't know that it was the rebellion at the time. So Bail Organa and Mon Mothma were meeting with other senators, including Padme, behind the Senate and behind Palpatine's back, discussing how they wanted to create a movement within the Senate to combat Palpatine's corrupt power, because he's just passing laws without any real restrictions, because he received emergency powers 4 years ago in the Clone Wars, before the Clone Wars and Attack of the Clones. and how they weren't looking for another war. Like Mon Mothma specifically says in this deleted scene, they're not looking for another battle. They're not looking for another war. They're not trying to raise an army here. They just want restored power in the Senate. And they're not supposed to tell anybody, and Padme feels conflicted, and like she wants to trust Anakin, and like ultimately she doesn't get the chance to tell him, as far as I know. And it doesn't seem like she does, because there's 2 scenes, and they're like, we can't tell anybody, and she's like, I want to tell Anakin, and they go, you really shouldn't tell Anakin. And she doesn't end up telling him, and it makes you wonder how the movie would have played out differently if Anakin had been made aware of Padme's real thoughts on Palpatine towards the end. So no, there's just a lot of political stuff going on too behind the scenes in those deleted scenes, as I said. Just about early formations of the rebellion, which of course carry throughout the rest of Legend, or the rest of the canon, leading into after episode 3 into 4 and stuff. Just something I wanted to add. We should probably just go straight into Order 66 because it's so good.
Yes.
It's arguably the best sequence in Star Wars. It's so good.
I would agree. I would definitely agree. I thought you were about to say something else. No, I think Order 66 is just like one of those. It's now like become iconic in Star Wars lore. Is Order 66 being like this giant, coup, I guess, where they're just literally killing all Jedi, and that whole kind of montage of just Jedi all across the galaxy getting ambushed. And it kind of really shows you that this whole Order 66 thing, this whole plan has been set in motion since the creation of the Clone Army in the Clone Wars. I mean, in Attack of the Clones, like the whole Order 66 call sign, or whatever you want to say, was like implemented in them when they were created. So like as soon as they hear it, it's like almost like a like this switch like inside them, it gets turned on, and they start massacring Jedi. Yeah, definitely probably like the second most like emotional thing in the movie. Like I said, I keep going back to it only because like I'm trying to remember like the first time that I saw it was just kind of seeing Order 66 play out in the theater, and just like how devastating it was to kind of see that, to kind of see the heroes kind of just get completely demolished. Was pretty interesting to kind of see in the theater, and kind of see for the first time. um I think it's something that like they hint at during the Clone Wars, if I'm not mistaken.
Order 66.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's a whole arc on it in season 6, which is so good. So good. There's actually a clone trooper kills a Jedi in the middle of the Clone Wars. It's towards the end, but like this clone just like literally like walks up to this Jedi in the middle of the battlefield and shoots her in the back of the head. And a couple clones figure out like that there's inhibitor chips within their heads that like have these orders in them. And they're trying to figure out like they're trying to get this information to the Jedi and to the other clones. And ultimately, the Jedi don't really find out, but a couple of key clone members do, including Clone Captain Rex and Commander Wolf and Commander Gregor. And ultimately, they remove their inhibitor chips, and they're included later on in Star Wars Rebels because they survived Order 66 and kind of went into hiding. Small other tidbit, there's this really great clone that gets frozen in stasis at some point in the Clone Wars, and like misses Order 66 and misses like the entire Galactic Civil War, and gets woken up by bounty hunters like 15 years after Return of the Jedi, so like right in the midpoint between that and The Force Awakens. And then he goes off with like a bunch of bounty hunters because he doesn't know what to do with his life anymore, because like the war's been over. Just a really like side story that I really like. Anyway, no, Order 66 is great. They cover so much. And yeah, there's been hints to it. Obviously the Jedi didn't pick up on it. Notable ones that die on screen: Ki-Adi-Mundi, Plo Koon, Alayla Sakura, and Stas Ali are all killed on screen. I mentioned earlier that Shaak Ti has like 3 on-screen deaths, one of which is at the hands of Anakin Skywalker in the Jedi Temple. She gets stabbed and killed by him. And that's her canonical death right now. That's the way that she dies currently in canon. Um, Something that I like because of the story opportunities, but something that I know some people don't love, is that it really was established in the end of this movie and in the original trilogy that Obi-Wan and Yoda were the only two surviving Jedi of Order 66. That was meant to be the implications of this film. Ultimately, a lot more survived. Like, you're probably looking about 30 Jedi that ultimately survived. Maybe a little less than that, but there were a lot of people that survived Order 66. In the grand scheme of things, as the Jedi Order was thousands in numbers, obviously that's very few survivors, but there are a lot that did ultimately end up surviving the Order 66, but a lot of our fan favorites do die in that sequence, and it's just so good. I think the changing environments on that planet on Order 66 is great because you go from Mygeeto, which is like a snowy planet with County Mundi, to like Felucia and Alayla Sakura, and it's like this jungle planet, to Yoda on Kashyyyk, and of course he escapes, and Obi-Wan on Utapau, which is more rock-based. And there's just so much going on. It just really kind of shows you the span and the reach of like what's going on. It's so interesting. Like, after seeing the development of the clones too, like, you have to wonder, like, if they like had like almost PTSD from doing it, or if like Order 66 kind of reset them and like they didn't feel emotion about it. It's just an interesting conundrum. But no, I mean, I love the sequence. It's really interesting, and it's something that obviously is really synonymous with Star Wars now. And all in all, we have to talk about the Jedi Order versus Sidious too, because that technically takes place before this.
So something I want to mention about like that whole that whole sequence. We just talk about just how useless Kit Fisto was in that whole thing.
Oh yeah,
Like,
we're gonna get into
Jesus,
that.
Jesus.
I mean, most of them are. Really, like, all of them are. Really. Like, let's see. You've got Mace Windu, Kit Fisto, Saesee Tin. It's not Eathcoth. I'm trying to think of his name. It's like the replacement to Eathcoth. But no, there's like a bunch of them, and obviously they all die like really quickly, except for Mace Windu.
Yeah. Kit Fisto put up a little bit more of a fight, and I'm talking like maybe like a 0.5 second more of a fight than the guy who literally just stands there and just gets instantly stabbed. And I don't like. I just felt like that was just kind of like lame. It's just like, you're gonna bring these Jedi that are supposed to kind of like back you up when you're arresting
Well, it just
the
shows how
Chancellor.
powerful Palpatine is.
Right, and he just mows right through them without a second thought, without them putting up any kind of fight, or just not being a match in general, because they're going up against the Sith Lord to end all Sith Lords.
And it was Agent Kohler, by the way. It was the third one. So yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot of threads about it online about why were they so bad. Like, why did you take these Jedi that were supposed to, kill Palpatine? I think it just says a lot about how powerful Palpatine was. And that, like, ultimately, like, they were not expecting him. Like, they knew he was a Sith Lord, but, like, he's also old. Like, you're not expecting him to do what he did. And Mace Windu ultimately got the upper hand, and without Anakin Skywalker, he obviously would have lost. Or Palpatine would have lost, I'm saying. And, I mean, it's a really cool sequence. It's probably my least favorite fight of the movie. Actually, that's not true. It's my second least favorite. But it's cool. I don't know. It's weird Ian McDermott faces, and like, it's kind of shot weird. The fight choreography's fine.
Yeah.
But it's shot and edited really weird, and it throws me off, honestly.
One thing I kind of noticed while watching it was like, you like visibly saw anger on Mace Windu's face, and I always know that there's like been this theory that Mace Windu uses some form of dark side energy. Correct?
Yeah.
Am I
No,
correct?
you're onto it.
Yeah.
But,
No. I feel like you kind of got a hint of that in that scene, in that fight.
yeah, no, just the idea is that, like, his character overall was, like, meant to invoke both sides of the Force but maintain the light side. Like his fighting style and his choice of combat derived from both aspects. And he wasn't the only one. Quinlan Voss was another one who did that, who also ultimately like survived Order 66. Quinlan Voss, though, teetered far more on the dark side and ultimately turned in Legends. I do not think he turned to the dark side in canon. But he was another one that like teetered on both sides. Mace was definitely more controlled with it, and it ultimately made him more powerful. But yeah, no, I definitely you get where you're coming from with that. There's a lot that could be said about how Mace Windu approaches his fighting style, thanks to aspects of the dark side, and probably helped him get the upper hand in that battle.
Yeah, because somehow he managed to kind of find the balance between the two, where he doesn't get pulled, into the dark side, which is quite impressive considering a lot of Jedi can't do that, or a lot of Sith can't do that, where they can kind of be on both sides and not kind of get dragged completely one way or another.
Yeah.
Um, but I know you said this probably like when you released it at fights. I actually really liked that fight because like that's the first time you get to see the Emperor kind of in a one-on-one battle with somebody, and I think it's the only time you see it because most of the time, he's the puppet master. He's the guy behind the scenes pulling the strings. They kind of see him in the forefront and actually fighting and stuff was really, at least for me, I really enjoyed seeing that. Yeah, and like the faces he makes are just a little strange, but like they were strange, but I feel like they fit because Palpatine's always been like this really strange dude, and I kind of see him just act really weird during a fight. Just kind of, I feel like it kind of gelled. I feel like it kind of gelled for me, but I just love the fake out that he does. After Mace Windu was kind of disarmed him of his lightsaber, and he's kind of got him up against the wall, and he's shooting the electricity, and like he's like, oh, like I'm too weak or whatever, and you see him kind of like play like this whole like woe is me character, like, oh, like I'm so helpless, and he does this quick little glance over to Anakin after he kind of like whines about like, oh, I'm too weak, don't kill me, and like he looks at Anakin trying to see if it's working, and I was just like, he's just so manipulative that like
Oh, it's
because
great. I
yeah,
love his character so much.
like he had the strength the entire time to continue fighting, but because he wanted Anakin to finally make the choice to turn completely to the dark side, that he kind of played on Anakin's sympathy and Anakin's kind of need for Palpatine to still be alive. I just found that just to be like really interesting that he did that, because like as soon as Anakin cuts off Mace's his arm, his hand, Palpatine's just like, all right, now he's with me, and then he just gives him everything he has in the Force lightning and throws him off the building. I was just like, like the level of manipulation that Palpatine has orchestrated from that beginning sequence in after he killed Dooku to now has just been masterful and has been planned out for such a long time, and kind of see the progression from the subtle hints to the story of Darth Plagueis to seeing like now where he's been fully outed as a Sith Lord, and he's fully kind of exposed himself to Anakin because Anakin's gonna become his apprentice. Just mint, love it.
Yeah, no. Um, quick thoughts. Like I know that technically this was like established a really long time ago, but like thoughts on Palpatine essentially just naming him Darth Father because Palpatine names him Vader, and like it's just German.
It's funny you mentioned that because I was actually gonna ask you about that, how you felt, because I know a lot of people just don't like. They're like, oh, it just seems like really just like he feel like he just kind of just like nonchalantly names him Darth Vader, like just very like there was like no meaning behind it.
Well, I think there's a lot
Um,
of meaning behind it. Don't get
yeah,
me wrong. Like I think
yeah,
that Anakin like wanting to protect his children and his wife is like the thing that makes him evil. Like
hmm
it turns him. So like I think there's a lot of significance behind it. I think that the scene is like meh, but like the name and
right.
how like Palpatine derives it, I think is still pretty good.
Right, yeah, no, I have, um, yeah, I don't have a problem with the way he's named. I don't have a problem with that at all. Um, it's just I just really do like that scene because you just see how defeated and desperate and how just afraid Anakin is, and Palpatine just preys on all of that to manipulate him into what he wants him to be. And then, of course, the other kind of factors came into play, like you mentioned earlier, how the council really seems to not really trust him, and Anakin notices that. And then, of course, you have uh, the Anakin's kind of like quest for more power, which is something that you've seen in previous Star Wars films. Just everything kind of played into this moment right here. Um, that I thought was really good. But yeah, I have no problem with the way he named him Darth Vader. I don't have a problem with the way, he kind of just like comes up with them on the spot. Maybe he thought about this already, like beforehand. Like,
Well, you
I
have to
wonder
think about
what
the
his.
fact that if he you'd have to think that like then German isn't like an existing language in Star Wars. If you look at it that way, because technically German wouldn't exist in Star Wars,
Right?
But like,
Actually, I didn't even know that was a German word until just now.
You didn't. No, Vader is German for
Yeah.
father. That's why he's Darth Vader. That's how Lucas named him. Because. Oh, what did you think it meant?
I didn't think. I never.
It
like
means
looked up
father. That's why like he's named Darth Father, and he's Luke's father.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the whole name behind it.
Oh yeah, no, I never. That's something I didn't know. I never looked up like, oh, what does Vader mean or Vader, whatever you want to. Whatever.
Well, yeah, it's Vader in German, but like, it's Vader and Star Wars, obviously.
The more you know. Oh.
The more you know. But no, I mean, I like that scene. Switching into like Order 66 phase, post Order 66. We didn't talk about Anakin storming the temple. Really cool stuff. I like that Rex isn't there. We're gonna get Rex's story at the end of Clone Wars. We know that he removes his inhibitor chip at some point so that he's not affected by Order 66. And we know that him and Ahsoka help each other escape during the Battle of Mandalore. And they both think they're dead, I think. I don't know. We haven't gotten that full story yet. But when they reunite in Rebels, it kind of feels like they both thought they were kind of dead. But no, they help each other escape. And ultimately, we see Anakin storming the temple with the rest of the 501st, killing everybody in his path. Some people escape. Jocasta Nu, the librarian lady, she makes it out. She's alive. Not really sure where she is during Order 66. The Jedi Temple Guards, which we see in Clone Wars, we know one of them ultimately becomes the Grand Inquisitor, so he helped them indirectly, and then received favor from Palpatine for it. But no, I mean, Anakin and the clones basically maul everybody, including Shaak Ti, and a couple other named characters, but not anybody relevant enough to name off right now. And the younglings. We have the scene with the younglings.
Poor younglings, man. They didn't stand a chance.
Most recently, Hayden Christensen and the kid that played that youngling like reunited at a con, which was really funny.
Oh, that's nice.
Well, kind of.
So yeah, nice. God, I use the word "nice" very loosely.
And the younglings. He killed the younglings. Anyway, sorry. But no, I love that sequence. Or like to wrap up Order 66 and kind of head into like the final act of this movie. It's really good. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
So we've got the final kind of parts here. I really want to briefly touch on like Yoda and Obi-Wan reuniting and like going back to the Jedi Temple. I like that sequence a lot. It's just a small little part of the movie. But it's just something that I find really cool. I wish we got more of that in the movie. I feel like there might be another deleted scene of that section, but like I can't remember it off the top of my head. And then of course you have Obi-Wan sending out the message to the other Jedi, Yoda telling him he has to go fight Anakin, and that kind of like and then Obi-Wan of course stops by to say hi to Padme before embarking to Mustafar alongside her. So yeah, thoughts on that like really small middle section of that before we get into like the third act and the final battles?
Um, I just felt like it was just really great setup. Kind of seeing like how much Anakin has changed since he's been gone for like seemingly a few hours. Um, it's like it just kind of like reminds me of that scene in Community where freaking Donald Glover's character comes back with pizza and like everything's just like on fire
Oh
and
yeah.
everyone's just like flipping out. It's literally exactly what Obi-Wan kind of experiences by going back to the Jedi Temple and finding all of this carnage and just seeing everything that's transpired since he's been gone. And then just literally seeing like his heartbreak as he watches like his best friend, his brother, murdering younglings and just other members of of the Jedi, or just anybody in the building, really, anyone who kind of like just happened to be associated with the
Yeah, no,
Jedi,
they
just
killed
getting
everybody.
yeah, like there were like, I mean, aside from a few people that you mentioned, there was essentially no survivors. And like realizing what he has to do, but not knowing if he had the strength to do it, to kill Anakin. That's why he was like, send me to kill like the Chancellor. Like, I'll do that. He's like, but I can't. When it comes to Anakin, I just can't do that. Like, he's my brother. Like, I've trained him. I've known him since he was a kid. I can't go and kill him. But then, Yoda was just like, he was like, you're not strong enough to take on the Emperor. He's like, you need to handle him.
It'd be so
And
sick
kind
to
of just
see.
seeing. Hmm?
I'd love to watch that though. Like think I forgot about that line. I love the idea of like Obi-Wan fighting Palpatine. Like
Yeah,
he
no, that would
probably
have been
doesn't stand a chance. I don't know. The Obi-Wan fanboy in me makes me think he can.
Well,
But
the thing
like,
is, Yoda himself was just like, he was like, he like verbatim was like, you're not strong enough to take him on.
oh, I know.
So
But
I was
it'd be
just
still
like,
cool to see.
oh, absolutely, that would have been a great fight. But yeah, like that scene. Now I'm really like thinking about it more. Like, it definitely is a really good scene. It's a great emotional scene, especially for Obi-Wan in particular. Yoda already knew that Anakin was the reason why everything at the Jedi Temple happened. He already knew, and then kind of that's why he was just like if you look into the security footage, all you're gonna find is pain, and that's all he found, because like for the reasons that I mentioned previously. But yeah, no, it's a really great scene. Seeing Obi-Wan kind of go to Padme, because he was just like, he knew that they were together in some form, or they had some form of contact, and then realizing he was like, Anakin's the father, isn't he? And like that just adds so much more like pain to what he has to do, because he's essentially going to take the father away from those kids. Um, so yeah, just that whole sequence before Mustafar, just really brilliant. Just a lot of emotional beats that those scenes hit for me. Um, Especially mainly for Obi-Wan. Really, I think out of all of the characters that this affects, I think it affects him the most, because he's the one having to kind of carry out this deed. Um, but yeah, since we're going to Mustafar, I wrote down something that I found like really interesting about not only Anakin but Sith in general, and maybe since you have a lot more knowledge about this, you can kind of like maybe shed some light on why this is a thing. But I noticed that the further Anakin got into the dark side, um, the more yellow his eyes
Oh
became. and
yes,
then
great.
and then with Palpatine, after he gets like electrocuted and everything, and he puts the cloak over his eyes, they're just like this deep yellow with like some reddish like highlights. What is like, what is the significance of like Sith and yellow eyes? Is there like a connection there, or am I kind of just like fishing for stuff?
Originally it started out more as a symbolic thing,
Mm,
I believe. Um, More recently, it's sort of been established, not directly, but you can kind of infer. Like Maul has bright yellow eyes too. Um, that the more dark side energy you consume and the more power that you give yourself in the dark side, the more it corrupts your body and like deteriorates it. Um, you kind of see that with Palpatine and the lightning. Like obviously that gets redirected in his face, but like
mhm,
that's not typically like what would happen if you get like burned. That's not like the effect that you would have, because technically lightning is heat and like you would like burn essentially if you got struck by lightning, I believe.
mhm. Right.
So like it's more of Palpatine absorbing that dark side essence and therefore like his body just deeply deteriorating. And the yellow eyes kind of comes with that as well. So like the more powerful that Anakin became, like the more his body was deteriorating, and like the prolonged effects of that
would ultimately result to something like what happened at Palpatine. And his was just super rushed. And then when you combine that with like Anakin's injuries that he sustains on Mustafar, like it's the same thing like why Kylo Ren hits himself in The Force Awakens. Like the more pain you're in, the more dark side energy you consume, the more it fuels you at the same time. So it's kind of like this cycle that seems to develop between the dark side energy and like appearance, and just the fact that clearly by embracing this aspect of the Force, it's not a healthy choice and not something that you should be doing. And other than just being superly thematic and symbolic, like that's basically like the in-universe explanation for it.
Okay. Yeah, I was like super curious about that because I was just like, like Maul had yellow eyes, Palpatine has yellow eyes, and then as while Anakin's kind of like slaughtering the separatist leaders on Mustafar, you see like when he seen him.
Oh
talking
no,
about
I
when he,
definitely know what you're talking about.
turns and looks in the camera, and you see his eyes, and I'm just like, there's also like a tear there too, and I found very interesting
Yeah.
because like you see the great depths that Anakin is going to save his wife, save his family, and like that takes like an emotional toll on him at some point during that whole thing. So very interesting. There's a lot of like he's not like fully bad or anything like that. Like he was just doing this because he felt like he needed to. So very 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 cool.
Yeah, no. I'm with you on that. Battle of Mustafar. Let's just tackle Sidious versus Palpatine first. It's probably easier.
Sidious
versus yeah, you know what Yoda. I mean. Sidious versus Yoda. You know what I mean.
Yeah, I got you.
I kept calling Rise of Skywalker The Force Awakens last week. It was so bad. It's just a hard name to say. The Rise of Skywalker and The Force Awakens is so stuck in your head. Anyway.
Yeah.
I don't like this fight. I don't like it.
Really?
I hate it. I hate it so much.
The
scene in like his office is okay. Like Yoda just kind of flops the guards around, which I think is funny. And then like they fight, and it's just like it's cool. I don't know. He's just like throwing those Senate chairs at him with the Force. I hate that. And like, there's no real lightsaber stuff. It's a Force battle, which I like. I respect that. But like, I like Dooku and Yoda's Force battle way more because like it actually feels like they're using the Force instead of Palpatine just throwing giant heavy objects at this little tiny green man.
Right.
I don't know. It feels like a CGI mess to me. It's like one of the few things about Revenge of the Sith I don't like. I don't find it to be like anticlimactic or anything. I also just don't think it had to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know.
I mean, like I definitely kind of agree with you to a certain degree. Like him kind of like throwing those like Senate like seats at Yoda was just like a little. It almost kind of like felt like they didn't know what else to put there, so they were just like, all right, well here, let's just have a sequence where they kind of like have this Force battle, and then Yoda catches one, and he starts like spinning it because apparently spinning it and throwing it will make it hurt more. I guess
it's momentum, physics.
You can still just throw it back straight up. You don't gotta spin it. It's still gonna hurt. But I guess they want to make it look cool. Like, oh, Yoda's got all these like cool powers and stuff. I do think that scene of where Palpatine throws lightning at Yoda and he catches it.
Oh yeah, that's cool. I'll give you that one. That one's cool.
Yeah, I love. That's like my favorite part in the entire that fight. And then of course he like gets blasted back, and then Yoda retreats. I don't know why he retreats because I mean like he could still. I mean he's got hops. He can get back up there. He can kind of move around
kicked,
too.
Josh.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah,
he was getting his ass kicked.
But then that line that he has once he jumps into the speeder with Organa, where he's like, I have to go into exile. I failed. Like I just felt like so sad. I just felt like so bad. I was just like, the main like the top dog Jedi couldn't even take out Palpatine, and he just felt really defeated and stuff. But yeah, probably not my favorite fight in the movie. I think I have it lower in terms of like fights. I think I have it lower than like the General Grievous and Opie fight. I feel like you could have done a lot more with that, especially since you have these two powerhouses kind of going at each other for the first time. I feel like you could have done a lot more than what they did, but it's not a bad fight to me, but it's also it's not anywhere near as good as what it could have been.
Yeah. So let's talk about the good fight. Um,
Yes.
the Battle of Mustafar is so good. The precursor to this, I kind of want to talk a little bit about this. We can kind of touch on it on both sides, both pre-Battle of Mustafar and post. I like the setup with Padme and like what happens and like how she feels like she's lost him. The writing isn't great. They try their best with the acting, but anyway, I'd love to hear more about this whole theory that you have that Palpatine killed Padme.
Oh,
But you could kind of touch on it on both sides of like the battle, because obviously like there's part of the pre side of it and the post side of it.
right.
I'll say now, like Anakin just choking her out with the Force, and then like the emotional toll like is enough for me to like be like, oh, she died just of like natural causes and like lost the will to live. But like I'd like to hear your theory, because this is something that is genuinely a little bit intriguing to me.
You want to get into it right now?
I mean, would it better fit the pre-Mustafar battle, or would it better fit the post-Mustafar battle?
Probably post.
Okay, so then we'll wait.
Yeah, for at least the way that I kind of think about it, yeah, I'd probably say it probably fits more into like the post Mustafar fight. So yeah, we can touch on it then if you want.
Okay, sounds good. I've said, I know it feels weird because like obviously I haven't spoken about the Battle of Mustafar like on this podcast yet, but I talk about it all the time. It's so good. I feel like I don't have a lot of new points to bring to it. Like there's not some perspective that I have on it that like other people haven't already shared, which makes voicing my opinions on it a little bit more difficult. It's very good. I love the choreography. I will say that. I think I'm one of the few people that like genuinely has no issues whatsoever with it. Even the people that typically like that fight will say that, yeah, it's a little over choreographed. But I disagree. I like every aspect of it. It's my favorite fight in all of Star Wars. I think it's the third best fight in Star Wars overall. But it is definitely my favorite. I mean, I want to hear your thoughts, and then I'll kind of bounce off of those and like share my perspective on those aspects of it.
All right. Well, I'm gonna start off by saying I know actually there are a lot of people that feel like it's a little too over choreographed, and I'll give them that. Like there are certain parts when they're like doing like a little spinny thing, and they're like like you know what part I'm talking about when they're like doing all this extra special moves. But overall, I don't really feel it. For me, it doesn't feel like it was choreographed, and the only reason why I say that is because you feel like the level of anger and aggressiveness and just sheer power that Anakin has. Obi-Wan's backpedaling essentially the entire fight. Anakin is completely on the offensive, and I just feel like the moves that he's just using are just from like pure anger. Like I don't see it as like, oh, like it's like super like choreographed and it's like too clean. It feels like a dirty fight, especially since there's a couple instances in the fight where they're like clotheslining each other, and like I'm like Anakin. There's a part where Anakin literally drop kicks Obi-Wan like off a table.
It's a very good fight.
Yeah, no, yeah, I just feel like that fight. It's raw. It's fueled by a ridiculous amount of emotion. Because of course Obi-Wan was definitely supposedly an enemy of Anakin before he got to Mustafar, but like kind of seemingly from his point of view that Padme brought Obi-Wan to kill him. I feel like that added just an extra layer of anger. He was already angry that he has to, he's been murdering all these people, and he's kind of like going against everything that he was taught to everything that he learned, but kind of like seemingly Obi-Wan there with Padme's wishes to kill him, I think added an extra layer of anger to the fight, which wouldn't have been there if reasons. But I really do enjoy this fight. I do think maybe at a certain point it goes on just a little bit too long. Probably when they're on that little, I forget what it's called, but they're like on this thing that's in the lava, and they're like climbing up, and then they get on the ropes and they
Oh,
start
I think
smashing
it's
each other.
I don't I think it's either the shield projector or like a satellite thing. Like I know what you're
Okay.
talking about. I don't actually know what it is, but I think it has something to do with like the shields that shield the base from like the heat of the lava. I'm pretty sure
Mm.
that's what it is.
Um,
Because they dismantle those internally and then they go out and fight on it and it's like melting because it wasn't holding up the shield.
Yeah, because there was a part in like right before, actually, it was right after kind of Anakin and Obi-Wan kind of do like that force. What do you want to call that? Force combined thing where they both try to use the force. They try to force push each other at the same
Oh, I
time,
do like that.
and they
Yeah.
kind of just like like they're kind of like at a stalemate at that point until they finally blast him back, and then Anakin kind of slashes and removes the shields on some of the stuff on Mustafar, which causes to kind of become unstable and all that.
Right.
But yeah, like it's not just the fight or like the emotion behind it. The score here is
Oh
so
yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, it's good.
Like John Williams does a phenomenal job. Um, and then like you hear like different hints of like Duel of the Fates. And I forget what the main Mustafar battle theme is called, but it's beautiful. Cinematography wise, gorgeous shots, especially when they kind of come together on that bridge and the lava's kind of like splashing behind them. It was really beautifully shot. And then once they kind of get off that like shield projector type thing and they kind of land on those little droids, that little uh, that little piece of dialogue that they have between each other, where he's just like, "I failed you," and he was like, "Yeah, I should have known the Jedi were plotting to take over." And you see just how corrupt Anakin has become within the course of this movie, from someone who was just like, who was hesitant to kill Count Dooku because he felt like it wasn't the Jedi way, to now attempting to kill his mentor
Right.
and the guy he's known since he was a child. I felt like just the I wouldn't even call it growth. I guess the downfall of Anakin Skywalker is like so prevalent in that scene alone, because you see how twisted Palpatine has made his mind.
Yeah, it's
And
like
so
the growth of Darth Vader. Like it's the
yeah,
downfall of Anakin Skywalker, but the growth of Darth Vader.
yeah, no, absolutely, and it's it's so obvious, especially when Padme sees it, when he's talking about like, oh yeah, we can just make the galaxy the way we want it to be, and you see like in his eyes that he is just not the same person anymore.
Right.
Which is why I know people think like that line where she's like, Anakin, you're breaking my heart, is like super cringeworthy, but like it's, I don't know, like I love it. I don't know, like, a lot of their dialogue honestly is like super cringy, but it just fits in like the world of Star Wars. It's a very operatic type dialogue that they have. It's very Romeo and Juliet esque. Um, so
Shakespearean.
Shakespearean. There you go. What did I say?
I
Well,
don't
yeah,
know.
yeah,
I don't know what you said. It was
I'm
weird though.
I'm glad that you caught on. So it wasn't that
Star
far off
Wars
from what I
is
was
so
thinking to say.
Shakespearean.
Yeah, no, yeah, it was
You
definitely,
were
yeah.
like romantic, and I was like,
No, I said Romeo and Juliet.
I know, but then you were
Oh,
like, I don't know what you said. Anyway,
yeah. Anyway, something that I found really cool, and this is kind of going towards the end of the fight. I know like a lot of people were like, yeah, the maneuver that Anakin tries to make on Obi-Wan once he gets to the high ground is something that was hinted at in the Phantom Menace, and that's completely true.
yeah,
But it's also hinted at in this fight, because when they're kind of having that dialogue, they're on two separate kind of platforms that are floating on the lava. Anakin does the exact same flip once over Obi-Wan, and he notices it, which is why within like 15 seconds after him doing that, that's when Obi-Wan jumps to the high ground, because he knew Anakin was going to try it again. He knew, because he got away with it once. He's going to get cocky and he's going to try it again. And then that's when he caught him. And I just found that really like Obi-Wan thought that quickly about Anakin's arrogance, Anakin's cockiness, and he knew that you'd be overconfident enough to try that same maneuver again. Because I mean, he'd seen it before. Uh, and then just the heartbreaking dialogue that Obi-Wan has when he's talking about, like, you're my brother, you're supposed to be the chosen one, all that stuff. Just really hard hitting stuff. As Anakin's literally left there to burn and die. They went from fighting again in the Battle of Coruscant together to him leaving Anakin for dead on the side of a mountain on a fiery lava planet. So
Yeah.
just really great stuff. There's I don't think there's like a particular part of this entire Mustafar sequence that I don't like. It's just I feel like it's just really really well put together. I think the emotion at the core of it kind of really just brings it home for me.
Yeah. I'm gonna agree with all your sentiments because we're clocking it about 2:10. Gonna move past the
Oh
Battle
my
of
lord!
Mustafar, because you kind of said everything I have to say on it.
Right, right.
So moving past that, I love the sequence after this, both on Molus Pasa and on the Tantive 4. I like both of these sequences. I wanted to mention Jimmy Smits as Bail Organa. So good. Super underrated.
Right.
He shines in like every scene. I love him so much. He's actually one of my favorite Star Wars characters now as a result. And just everything he stands for. Anyway, tell me about your Padme Palpatine death theory, because like that's really like the most important event to come after this, other than like the actual ending of the film.
So I feel like his plan to kill Padme was kind of always set in motion. Yeah, I feel like he's the one who gave Anakin the vision of Padme dying, just to kind of set the whole plan in motion. And I feel like him kind of making sure Anakin doesn't have any kind of other tie to the light side would be him killing Padme. Like, but at the same time, and like the only reason why I have like a little bit of doubt when it comes to my theory is if he killed Padme, why did he let the twins survive? Which I mean, maybe you can help me kind of, I don't know, debunk my own theory, which is quite possible. But I just feel like he set Anakin up to fall to the dark side. He had him kill literally everyone that he ever kind of like knew aside from Obi-Wan. But that relationship with Obi-Wan is severed. That's never going to be kind of like reconciled ever again. So he essentially has no one. Um, Padme was his last tie to his old life, and by him killing that part of Anakin, he has no one except the dark side, and he has no one except for the Emperor. So I feel like that was his plan all along, to where like Palpatine is like the only like constant in his life. I don't know, just that's my own
No,
breakdown.
yeah. I don't know. On some hands, like I don't even know if, I mean, I know Palpatine knew that Padme died. It's like they had the funeral for her. But like part of me thinks that Palpatine like didn't know that she was like 100% dead. He was gonna tell him that, and he was gonna tell Vader that anyway. Because once you're told something, and like if you believe it, like you'll miss things in the Force. Like both Palpatine and Vader knew that like Padme had kids from Anakin. Like Luke and Leia exist, or at least one of them existed. But like they couldn't sense them, and they couldn't find them forever. And it's not just because they were on Tatooine or like Alderaan. Like there are definitely other aspects of it. Like Vader and Palpatine were very close to Leia at different points between episodes 3 and 4, because Leia was part of the Senate, and like it just happens. Like the fact is that like they weren't being spread out. So like I would assume that like neither Vader nor Palpatine could like sense either child, and Palpatine probably could not sense Padme's death officially, but like assumed so. And then was later confirmed, and like Vader shut off that part. Like he wasn't searching for her, and he probably felt that she had died.
Right.
I don't know. Ultimately, I don't know. I don't see Palpatine like having a hand in that. I think that ultimately it was a mix between like Vader and like choking her, and then like her like losing the will to live. I think that says a lot about her character. But I mean, I can't like hard dispute your theory with facts. I mean, him not killing the twins in the process like is a good reason to like dispute it, but honestly, it's so left up to like your own thoughts that like you could honestly reasonably think that, and you might not be wrong.
Right. I just I just think about it from this the perspective of someone who's going to great lengths to bring someone to their side, that they would literally remove everything, kind of tying them to their old life in order to have them completely and fully. But then again, like I meant, like you and I both mentioned, him kind of keeping Luke and Leia alive, is just like kind of like that little chink in that theory armor that I have right now.
Right.
But yeah, I don't know. I just that's just kind of like how I thought about it. But I'm not dismissing your idea whatsoever. So
Other than that, like the last final couple big points, we get the hint of the Force ghosts, from Qui-Gon and Yoda, and the idea that Obi-Wan is training with Qui-Gon's Force ghost on Tatooine. Um, just like that little lore bit, I like that Qui-Gon was the first Force ghost. It seems fitting. Was making some parallels with Alex about how like Episode 9 and Rey really parallels in some ways like Avatar, The Last Airbender, and Aang, and like where I think they could be going with her character. And then Alex admitted that he had not seen Avatar, The Last Airbender, so I kind of dropped that there.
he's
But
missing out. Such a fantastic show.
I just have like some feelings about like Rey, the parallels between Rey and Aang's characters, and like them being kind of these like heroes out of time, and like not part of lineage, like, or like out of the lineage in a way, and like having to call upon their past lives or past ancestors or whatever. I don't know. I don't want to get into it right now. We're going to talk more episode 9 speculation a couple weeks before the movie, and I'll have a couple people on for that one. Other than that, we of course get the final shots. What's his name? Who plays Uncle Owen in this? He's famous. What is his name?
Oh, Joel Edgerton.
Yeah, Joel Edgerton. I want to say Joel Kinnaman, but I was like, that's not right. That's Rick Flag. I almost said Ric Flair. Anyway, I'm all messed up with names. No, I love Joel Edgerton. I want him to if they do a Kenobi series. God, if he's Uncle Owen, oh, so good. I love the final shot of this movie. It's so good. Leia going to Alderaan with them, self-explanatory, pretty nice. Wraps up her character really well, sets up the future for her. And then Obi-Wan looking over the twin suns, very good. Any final thoughts on that? I mean, it's pretty much the end of the movie. It ends on a good note. Oh, you got Vader overlooking the Death Star with Grand Moff Tarkin and Palpatine.
Okay, yeah. One, I totally did not notice until like watching it like today.
But that was
like,
Tarkin.
that's a young Tarkin that was sitting next to the Emperor. Great. That was like super cool. And then just like super brief. When they finally put the Vader mask on, just like that first initial like breath that he takes, and you see when he exhales, you see the smoke kind of clear like from his mouth. Oh, dude, just beautifully done.
So good.
I loved it.
Something I wanted to note also about that ending is like that shot of Vader and Palpatine overlooking the Death Star. Definitely like a big year time jump on that.
Oh yeah.
The Death Star was not being built that much by then. Just wanted to make that note. Other than that, I mean, that's kind of like my overall end thoughts on Revenge of the Sith. Do you have any last thoughts on the movie before we get into like my last couple episode 9 questions and we wrap up?
Yeah, no, I think we covered everything. We covered everything about it. This is definitely, like I said, my second favorite Star Wars movie of all time. Just
I have to check where I have it ranked.
I don't know where you have it ranked.
I think I have it like 4 or 5. It's like right there for me. Let's find my Star Wars list. I keep it like very closely in my notes. Yeah, I have it at 5 right now.
That's a reasonable spot. That's not bad at all. But yeah, no.
I don't know if I like that or The Force Awakens more now though. I don't know. I think I like Revenge of the Sith better.
Right.
Anyway,
when I think of Star Wars, of course, I think of like Empire, but the second movie I think about is Revenge of the Sith. I just feel like it's just fantastic. Obviously, it's not perfect. No movie is perfect, but That one comes pretty damn close to me.
Absolutely. Okay, so I've been asking, I guess, my one guest so far, but I'm going to be continually asking this until we get this information. What do you think the runtime will be for episode 9, and when do you think we get the next trailer?
So I think the runtime might clock in around like 2 hours and 32 minutes.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. I'm gonna say 2:32 is like the runtime.
Okay.
And I
Just start keeping track. I'm going to start writing it down so I can make like a betting list of who's right and who's wrong.
All right. And I think we actually might get the trailer in September. I think we're gonna get another trailer in September.
Okay.
And I think that's when they're gonna do like a full-fledged marketing push. The movie comes out in December. We're less than 6 months away. So I definitely think that they're gonna start pushing out like a lot more Rise of Skywalker content and advertising in September. So
Yeah, the Force Friday, which is like the big toy marketing push. I want to say is October 1st. Hold on. Let me check real quick. To answer your, it's set for October 4th. So to answer my versions of my questions, I've been sticking to it. I think episode 9 is going to be 2 hours and 42 minutes. And I think we are not getting another trailer until October, like mid-October.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think that we get a Mandalorian trailer at D23, which is that this month or next month? I think it's this month. I think it's later this month in August. It's like at the end of August. I'm gonna check on that real quick. But either way, I don't think we're getting much episode 9 maybe they'll get an exclusive thing at D23 for episode 9. But I think we're getting a Mandalorian trailer, and that's going to hold us over until what they normally do, which is a Monday Night Football teaser trailer sometime in mid-October. They've done it with The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. Typically, I think we get another trailer in between than what we've gotten with The Rise of Skywalker, but I think they're keeping it really close to the chest. D23 is August 23rd through the 25th, so it's at the very end of August. I think we get a Mandalorian trailer. We sit very patiently waiting, maybe some more Mandalorian content in September. Then we don't get another episode 9 teaser until mid-October. Which feels like a really long time, but like
yeah,
with the Mandalorian content coming out, maybe not. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But I feel really good about the runtime. I think Alex said 2 hours and 47 minutes. But
ooh, that's long.
well, it's the end of the saga.
Yeah.
I feel like they're kind of wanted. I want it to be longer than 2 hours and 42 minutes, but that feels about right for me.
What if it's like?
Yeah.
What if it's like 2 hours and like 6 minutes? You're like, wait, what?
Hey, I mean, it's weird because like I did not feel good about JJ when they re-announced him, but I've rewatched The Force Awakens recently and I feel pretty good about things. I have crazy theories and I have very reasonable theories, and I know JJ is going to go safe, but I don't think we're going to get entirely safe with episode 9.
Yeah, I don't think I even though I have my issues with The Last Jedi, I definitely do think that movie kind of like set the precedence for going kind of like above and beyond what fans kind of expect them to do. So I think maybe kind of JJ's learning like, oh hey, maybe I can kind of go get a little bit wild with this one. So who knows? I kind of hope he does. I hope he does something that's like, I don't know. See, I can't even say that because then I'm gonna get into like other things, and I don't.
Yeah, we're gonna have. I might wait until the next teaser trailer comes out so we have a little bit more context. But I'm definitely going to have like a pre-Rise of Skywalker podcast where we get into some speculation. Other than that, we're going to start wrapping things up here. Josh, where can the good people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at really sharp. That is the word sharp with an E. As that was hinted on the podcast, I am a big DC fan. And as you can probably see my DC News logo. I run a page on Instagram called DCU News, and you can find me at DCU News, as I've said 3 times in the past 10 seconds. So yeah, that's about it for me.
Absolutely. Josh, you're starting your own YouTube stuff here in the next couple months, I'll say. Give you some more time parameters than you gave me last time you tried to plug my podcast. I'll give you a couple months, but no, I'm excited to see what content you're doing. You're definitely gonna have to come back on, just like Alex, and you'll be a reoccurring guest.
Oh, for sure, man. I'm always down. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And as for me, you can find my personal account on Twitter at RealSeanHussey. Both my link and Josh's links will be in the description. And you've seen throughout the entire podcast my Twitter at and his Instagram at. As for this page, you can find us on Twitter and Instagram at SeanTalksSW. I do pretty much 4 to 5 Star Wars posts a day on top of the podcast content here. So if you're looking for either the Clone Wars rewatch thread, as I said, I do a nice thread every day on a new Clone Wars episode, or just some general Star Wars art, fan art, all sorts of good stuff like that. Little trivia, I do quotes of the day, fun stuff like that. Feel free to follow me there. Check out all of the fun Star Wars content outside of the podcast. If you're new to the podcast, if you like what you see, obviously, I know we didn't have any technical issues this time. So if you really like what you see, if you like this kind of Star Wars content, feel free to like this video, subscribe, leave a comment, talk to us about Revenge of the Sith, as it says below. New episodes every Tuesday and Friday. I know that my Friday guest is going to be my friend Nathan. I do not know what the topic is yet. I'm waiting to hear back from him. I have a funny feeling it's going to be something Return to the Jedi related, but we will find out later. Other than that, guys, thank you so much for watching, and as always, may the Force be with you.
Peace.